Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where a wild Karen destroys her neighbor's Halloween decorations. Am I the jerk for calling the police on my neighbor for destroying my Halloween decorations? I, 30 male, have always really loved Halloween, and every year I go all out decorating the front yard with spooky props, lights, fog machines, you name it. This year I got my hands on some amazing animatronic figures, and I even set up a mini haunted path through my yard. The kids in the neighborhood love it, and I thought it would be a fun way to bring the community together. Now, the problem is my next door neighbor, who we'll call Karen. Karen moved in about 6 months ago and has complained about everything nonstop since then. She sent multiple HOA complaints for little things like my trash cans being too close to the curb and my dog supposedly barking too much, even though I have a small, quiet breed. So when I started putting up my Halloween decorations, I wasn't surprised when she made a few passive-aggressive comments about how tacky they looked. I ignored it, thinking she'd eventually get over it, but she didn't. The day after I finished setting everything up, I woke up to find my animatronics torn down, fake cobwebs ripped apart, and some of the smaller props smashed. I was livid, but I didn't have any proof, so I replaced what I could and installed a doorbell camera to catch any more vandalism. 2 days later, I caught her red-handed on camera, yanking down my decorations and stomping on the pumpkins I'd carved. I confronted her, and she went on a rant about how my decorations were an eyesore and scaring the kids. I told her they were only up for a few weeks, and all the neighborhood kids loved them, but she didn't care. She dared me to do something about it. So I did. I called the non-emergency line, and I filed a police report. An officer came out, looked at the footage, and had a talk with her. Now she's fuming and telling everyone that I overreacted, saying I should have just talked it out with her instead of involving the police. Her husband even came over and asked me to drop it, saying she's been really stressed. Some of the other neighbors think I took it too far, and now I'm wondering if maybe I did. Halloween decorations are just for fun after all, and maybe calling the cops was too extreme. Am I the jerk for escalating things with Karen? Not the jerk. I get that not everyone is a fan of Halloween, but that doesn't give them the right to destroy your decorations. I would sue her if I were you. You should be able to get the amount back that she damaged, plus an additional amount for the time that you spent setting it up. I'm so jealous of my sister's marriage that it sickens me. My sister and her husband always seem to have a good marriage. They've been together for around a decade, but you never really know, right? And to be honest, I thought they were just pretending since I've never had a relationship that was super good in private. Well, now I do know. I've been living with them for 3 months. They took me in when my ex cheated on me. They do nice things for each other all the time, and it's like they don't even think about it. It's just natural. They're always bringing each other little presents. My ex called me shallow when I wanted him to give me even a cheap present for my birthday. Their eyes light up when they look at each other. My ex looked at me like I was a potato. They hug each other as though they haven't seen each other in months whenever one of them gets home. My ex ignored me when I got home and wanted me to leave him alone and let him relax whenever he got home. They encourage each other's hobbies and outside friendships. My ex hated my friends and thought my hobbies were stupid. Worse yet, I can tell they're holding back when it comes to being affectionate around me. I arrived home early from an event one day and I saw her sitting in his lap while they were watching TV and he played with her hair. The stuff I see is apparently just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to how much they like each other. They've even been through difficult times that can tear couples apart, but they made it through just fine, I guess. I honestly didn't think relationships like this were real. I thought it was Hallmark BS and that all relationships are miserable, hard work once you get past the honeymoon stage. I couldn't believe it, so I snooped on her husband, Max. It turns out his private communications are fine. He had conversations with female friends, but they were only platonic, and he even talked about how much he loves my sister, Sandra. Anyway, I felt extremely guilty about snooping, so I confessed. They forgave me. My sister took me out for the day without Max and told me she had been in crappy relationships before Max, which I already knew, and that she thinks they helped her learn how to spot red flags so that she'd be available when the right person for her finally came along. She's also gone to therapy for a long time, and she said it helped her learn how to make healthy relationship choices and to be a good partner. Max and Sandra offered to pay for me to get therapy. My insurance isn't great, so that's nice. I just want to find something like what they have. Now that I know this kind of relationship isn't a fantasy, I don't think I'll ever be able to put up with someone like my ex again. It sounds like you wanted someone to be as miserable as you were to feel less alone, and I hope that therapy truly helps you heal and find value in yourself. Your sister and her partner sound amazing, and I'm glad they were able to help you. OP, you nailed it. The more I saw my sister and Max being happy, the more I felt worse and worse about myself and my life and all the time I've wasted in bad relationships. I hope the therapy helps me too. Max and Sandra are good people. I need to be more appreciative. It's hard when I'm so jealous, but it's important. I'm also glad they're able to help me. I feel pathetic needing the help, but I do need it. You should take their offer of therapy. Your view on relationships is incredibly skewed, and some sessions might help untangle some of it so you can view the dating world with a bit of optimism. Once you do that, you're on your way to finding a healthy relationship. Good luck. OP. I'm accepting the offer. I even have an appointment set up. Turns out it's very easy to get an appointment when you don't have to go through insurance. Update. I'm not sure exactly where to start, so I'm going to use a list format and just write off stuff of whatever order comes to mind. I started therapy very soon after my post. My first therapist wasn't great, so my sister Sandra encouraged me to find another one, and my second one was awesome. I'm still seeing him once every 2 weeks. He's helped me a lot with healing from my past relationships and also learning how to relate to others in a more healthy way in every part of my life. He also really helped me learn how to manage bitterness and jealousy, finding the underlying causes and working on those. I moved out of my sister and brother-in-law's house after a couple of months. It turns out that my sister and brother-in-law were secretly livid about the snooping, but they appreciated that I'd confessed on my own and decided to be kind and help me. They decided that if I took advantage of the help they offered and put effort into being better, they would forgive me. I didn't realize how close I was to making my sister go low contact with me. Thankfully, I did take their help. I'm not upset seeing how loving my brother-in-law is to my sister anymore. I'm happy for her. They became foster parents after I moved out, and they're now in the process of adopting the daughter that they've been fostering. They're literally the perfect people to be nurturing her, and they're doing so great. I've been single the whole time. That was on purpose. A few months ago, though, I determined that I'd be open to dating again. I didn't want to actively do anything, no dating sites, but I decided I wouldn't purposely avoid dating anymore. A week ago, a guy I became friends with at an animal shelter I started volunteering at about 6 months ago asked me out. I said yes. Our first date was great. He's very kind. He's the guy you go to if you need to calm down a scared animal. My sister approves of him, and he's very funny too. Am I the jerk for letting my boyfriend pay for my tooth extraction even though I wasn't asking for help? I, 26 female, recently had to get a tooth extraction and it was a huge unexpected expense, $500 out of pocket. I don't have dental insurance right now, so it was a pretty big hit for me. I'm managing financially, but don't have much wiggle room for emergencies like this, so it was stressful. My boyfriend, who's 27, and I have been together for a little over a year and recently moved in together. He's a really generous person, but we've always kept our finances separate since we're both fairly independent. When I got the bill for my tooth, I was venting to him about how unexpected costs like this suck, especially when you don't have insurance. I want to be clear that I was just talking it out with him, not asking for money or anything like that. But then, out of nowhere, he says, "Don't worry, babe, I'll cover it." And he transfers $500 into my account right then and there. I was really surprised and grateful, but I told him he didn't have to do that. He insisted, saying he could see how stressed I was and he wanted to help. Fast forward a few days later, and now he seems kind of resentful. He made a few offhand comments about how he's carrying me, or how being in a relationship shouldn't mean being a free ATM. I was so confused because I never asked for his help in the first place. I tried to talk to him about it, and he admitted that he felt pressured because he knew I was struggling and that he had expected me to at least offer to pay him back. This has really thrown me off because I thought it was a kind gesture and that he wanted to help me. I did thank him a lot, and I told him I appreciated it, but now I feel like he regrets it and feels like I took advantage of him. I've since offered to pay him back in installments, but he brushed it off saying, "It's done now, whatever." Now I'm left wondering if I was wrong to accept the money in the first place. I genuinely didn't mean to make him feel like he had to cover my costs. Am I the jerk for not insisting he not pay for my tooth extraction, even though he offered on his own? Not the jerk. Major red flag. Your boyfriend offered to do something nice for you, then did a complete 180 and started acting like a jerk for absolutely no reason. If he doesn't want to do nice things for you, then he shouldn't offer. Honestly, I'd reconsider this relationship at this point. He seems like he has some serious issues that you can't help him with. Am I the jerk for moving on so quickly after my husband left me? I'm 47 female. My husband, 47 male, asked for a separation on our 14th anniversary while we were away in a foreign country to celebrate. While we weren't as close as we used to be, we almost never fought and generally enjoyed each other's company and families. We do not have any kids. The night before our anniversary, he brought up that he wasn't very happy in the relationship but didn't know why. The next morning, I asked to see his phone, and he said no. He said I would find flirty messages with one or more other women on it. He had made some female friends through school and work, and he said he felt like there might be someone out there who was a better fit for him. I said I did not want to do a trial separation, as I don't believe you can work on something if you aren't living together. If he wanted to separate, it would be final. He understood, but said it was something that he had to do. After being away for only 2 days, we rebooked our flights home, flew home, and he packed some belongings and left. 7 days later, he asked to come home, and we started marriage counseling. He had a lot of trouble admitting he at least had one emotional affair. The counseling was not helpful, he was defensive and not open to it. I suspect something physical happened with the other woman, but I don't have any proof. He had deleted all of his flirty texts and Snapchats, etc., so I couldn't see them. After 4 weeks of living together again and attending counseling sessions, he decided he no longer wanted to try to save the marriage and he was leaving. He packed up and left a few hours later. He stayed with a friend, found a new apartment, and signed a 1-year lease. I was devastated and even had to take time off work to process what had happened and attend individual counseling. After 4 weeks, I started to feel a bit better. I went out for drinks with a group of 4 coworkers that live in my area and found I really enjoyed one of them, 42 male, a lot. I had only met him over Zoom before this. We started seeing each other a couple times a week. Quite quickly, it grew into a truly amazing, loving relationship. I've stayed in counseling throughout, as it wasn't easy to process the sudden ending of my long-term marriage at the same time as beginning something new. It's been about 7 months now. My ex-husband eventually decided he wanted to try to save the marriage again, but I declined. He says I'm the jerk for starting a new relationship so quickly, within 6 weeks of him leaving. Our relationship was over, as I can no longer trust him, and he's hurt me immensely. I do not want a relationship with someone I can't trust. Am I the jerk for moving on? Not the jerk. He literally said he felt there'd be a better woman for him somewhere. He's cheated on you probably multiple times, so he doesn't have the right to be mad at you for moving on when he couldn't even stay faithful to you. He can't try to get rid of you and want you again. He was expecting you to stay single, still want him and not move on, while he did whatever he wanted to do. OP, did you actually get a divorce? OP, in our state, couples must be separated a year before they can file for divorce. But yes, we will be filing when we can. Update. My ex-husband and I are finally divorced officially. We split everything equally, and I bought him out of the family home. Thankfully, the divorce process was quick and easy once we waited the mandatory separation period for our state. When signing the divorce papers, he asked if I was sure I wanted to proceed, notably while he was seeing someone else. He wanted to try again if I was willing. I wasn't, and thankfully he didn't fight it or make the divorce process more difficult in any way. My ex has been seeing this woman for quite a while now. I know he knew her before we split, but I do not know if he cheated with her or not. It doesn't matter to me. I wish them the best. My relationship with my new partner has continued to be amazing. It's the best relationship I've ever been in, and I can honestly say I've never been more happy. He is kind, loving, and a great communicator. We moved in together a while back, and a few months later we became engaged. We plan to elope somewhere in the next year. While it may seem crazy, I'm extremely grateful for my ex's cheating and the following heartbreak. Without it, I may not have found the happiness that I have today. Am I the jerk for buying my own dinner because I don't like what the in-laws order? I'd like to preface by saying that I'm not a picky person. I don't just turn down food. I'm always willing to try new things, even if they're weird or unconventional. One of my favorite things to do is to pick out something I've never tried before in the grocery store. But my in-laws are hooked on this one take-and-bake pizza joint that I just cannot stand. I've tried to like it. I've ordered so many different things off their menu. I just don't like it. They order it for every single family event, every get-together, every holiday, every birthday. I started ordering my own meals to bring to the parties. They got upset when they realized what I was doing. I explained that I like ordering my own food because it's a chance to get a treat for myself that I don't normally order. Still, they're always trying to convince my partner to get me to change my mind and just eat the same pizza as everyone else. This Halloween, we had all planned to get together for a Halloween party. My partner and I had actually planned out a fun homemade meal, pasta bar, for everyone, but mother-in-law became very upset that we weren't getting pizza. She put her foot down so hard that we thought there'd be an actual honest-to-God fight about it, so we told her that we could order the take and bake she wanted. And of course, I was going to run to the store and get my own favorite pizza. She became so angry. She insisted that I eat what she ordered, what everyone else was eating, and even offered to buy me anything that sounded good off the menu. I told her again that I don't like anything on the menu and that I'm perfectly willing to go and buy something that I do enjoy instead. She's still angry with me. Father-in-law is angry with me. They tried again and again to convince me, they always do, to get something off the take and bake menu, but I just don't like it. Am I the jerk for buying my own takeout instead of what's being served at the party? Edit. My partner is always supportive of me and would never try to make me eat something I don't like. He does stand up for me and tells them, just like I do, that I just don't like that place. He's a lot more confident about standing up to them, to be honest. But even when he gets them to back down, the issue is brought back up the very next time we eat together. And yes, we were planning on hosting and cooking everything. We'd actually bought all of the ingredients already. But when she gets upset, it's a whole big thing that could last for days and ruin the whole party, so it's really a pick your battles thing. Have everyone together for Halloween? Or have a silly fight over pasta versus pizza and miss Halloween altogether trying to do damage control? It's a mess. Not the jerk, your in-laws are insane. My mother-in-law is threatening to sue me for grandparents' rights. I, 28 female, have been married to my husband, 30 male, for 2 years, and we've been together for almost 10 years. I love my in-laws and have never had an issue with them, at least before I was pregnant with my first baby. My mother-in-law has one other daughter. Let's call her Jane, but she lives across the state. She has 2 boys and is done having kids. She lives close to her mother-in-law, and the boys are pretty close to her, which obviously causes some jealousy issues with my mother-in-law. My whole pregnancy has been one big guilt trip about how she never got to be there for Jane for her pregnancy. She would touch my belly or get really close to it to talk to the baby. I would tell my husband that it made me uncomfortable, and while he was understanding, he also felt bad for his mom too, and reminded me about how she missed many moments with Jane. During the last couple months of my pregnancy, we made the decision to move in with my in-laws to save money for a house. This made my mother-in-law so happy. She kept telling everyone she was excited for the baby to come home to her. I let those comments slide for a while, but finally had to confront her about my baby shower. My parents bought us a crib and nursery decorations for my registry, and my mother-in-law made a joke to my mom how good everything is going to look in her, my mother-in-law's, room, and that she's basically going to be our live-in nanny. My mom has never had any reason to dislike my in-laws, but these comments were very off-putting. I had to sit down with my mother-in-law about boundaries, and she started crying and said she just wanted to feel close to at least one of her grandkids. I tried not bringing up the topic after that, but she didn't make it easy. The thing that gets me upset the most is the constant need to have all the baby firsts. She wants to be the first to do everything, and it's so hard to tell her no. Until one day, she waited until I left the room at dinner time. When I came back, my husband excitedly told me how much the baby will love mashed potatoes and that my mother-in-law gave her a small spoonful and she went nuts. My mother-in-law said, "You weren't supposed to tell her. It was Grandma's little secret." I snapped. I said, "That's my kid, and there will be no secrets, no matter how small." Things got tense, and I got called dramatic, and that she's allowed to have grandma moments with my kid, whatever that's supposed to mean. I think my last straw is this. My husband and I have just been approved for our loan and will be signing papers on a house soon, about 45 minutes away from my in-laws. Lately, she's been going on about how it's unfair to her and how she doesn't know how to handle her baby being so far away. She's, jokingly, brought up suing for grandparents' rights or about setting up her new room. I wouldn't be so upset if it was 1 or 2 jokes, but after hearing about it daily, it's starting to feel less like a joke and more like she wants to take my baby. Am I the jerk for wanting to have another sit-down? Not the jerk. She has a serious jealousy and boundary issue and should talk to someone to get her some help with it. Do not give this woman a key to your house. Not the jerk. I'd be having a sit-down with you, your husband, your mother-in-law, and if she's married, her husband, laying down the ground rules. If mother-in-law doesn't abide by them, she gets put in a timeout until she learns to respect her role as grandmother, not mother. The threats of suing for grandparents' rights is highly dependent on the state y'all live in, but until she knocks off the threads, I'd limit her time that she gets to spend with the baby. Move out ASAP. She obviously gets highly dependent upon fantasized connections and will only get more attached, not the jerk. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or mother-in-law? Please let us know.
I never got to meet any of my grandparents, but if I could have and they really loved me, I think I would have turned out different.
Manager insists I do my job properly. Happy to comply, sir. Preface. In early 2020, I was hired under the title Assistant Manager at a local automotive shop. We mainly sold tires and alloy wheels for passenger vehicles. The company owned several stores. I reported directly to my manager, who then reported to the owner of the company. Shortly after I was hired, I noticed the behavior of the manager was far from professional. He would constantly mock and berate me for being the new guy. I believe part of this was jealousy and insecurity on his part, as I ended up recording more sales under my name within the first few months. He would also knock off, work early, and start drinking beer whilst the rest of us continued to work. I remember when he found out that I participated in MMA training sessions after work, he tried to goad me into a fight for his own amusement. Clearly, this guy didn't like me, and I was starting to get the feeling that he was trying to get me to snap or lose my cool, and as a result, my employment. I became even more certain of that with what happened next. Story. During the few months that I had worked there, I had noticed that our takings for the day and sales records did not match. I would often spend half an hour to an hour after work trying to figure out where the errors were coming from, whilst the manager would simply throw his hands in the air and exclaim that he had no idea how this was happening. The recurring issue seemed to be that our cash takings had been recorded incorrectly. There would sometimes be an excess amount of cash that didn't match up to what was recorded on our sales and invoicing software. Other times, there would be less. I was, at the time, an accounting student studying towards my bachelor's degree. I was already suspicious of the cash being taken out each day. However, given how the manager had been treating me up until this point, I was concerned that any complaint would somehow be twisted and used against me. And boy was I right. Several weeks later, my manager took some time off. During this time, I managed a personal record in store sales and also noticed something interesting. The cash was never out at the end of each shift. I reported this directly to the owner of the company, given I was acting manager during the time my manager was away. I was expected to report to the owner every day and explained what had been occurring whilst the manager was there. In all honesty, I was hopeful that the owner would be having a word with the manager about the discrepancies. However, I was also weary, as I believed once the owner spoke to my manager that the manager will immediately know it was me who reported this. When the manager returned to work, he immediately approached me with a disgruntled look on his face. "I've spoken with the owner. You tried to blame me for the discrepancies? You should focus on doing your job properly. Then this wouldn't happen." I was quite taken aback by how angry he was, though I wasn't surprised that he twisted it and tried to place the blame on me. Given his reaction, I'm even more suspicious at this point. He wants me to do my job properly, eh? Cue malicious compliance. That same week, I got to work. I started paying attention to what customers were paying when they were dealing with my manager. Behind his back, I began examining all of his sales transactions and invoices with a fine comb. As the days rolled by, I started to find evidence of his dishonesty. When it came to a few cash sales, my manager was doing the following. Example, would tell the customer the price is $200 if he pays cash, would discount the price by $50 in the sale and invoicing software, would put the extra cash into the till and record a $150 cash sale. Before we did the cash up at the end of the day, he would sneakily pocket this extra cash whilst no one was around, though he was very foolish, as he clearly couldn't remember the exact amount he had swindled. Hence why the cash would be up some days, didn't swindle enough, or the cash would be down, swindled too much. I took screenshots of the discounts he had been giving on sales and sent them to the business owner, along with a report. A report with a detailed description of my findings. The report also showed that on all days he wasn't there for the cash count, there was no variance. When he was there, well, the owner was infuriated. This man had been his trusted employee for years. The owner was so infuriated, in fact, that he ordered my manager to do a mandatory drug test on the same day he found out, and no surprise, he failed. Turns out the manager had quite a bad habit. This was most likely his sole motive for stealing the cash, and the owner was beside himself. We operate machinery every day in this store, and so the thought of a manager walking around after he had been doing something like this wouldn't sit well with any health and safety professionals. In fact, it could have landed the owner in serious legal trouble if any accident or injury occurred under his manager's watch. The manager was terminated immediately for violation of his contract and was later taken to court by the owner in an attempt to recover the stolen funds. Safe to say, I was promoted to store manager position shortly after his termination. Am I the jerk for leaving a bad review on a small store? So my boyfriend and I have a tradition for our anniversary that we each go to a store and separate. And after we buy each other gifts, we exchange in the car. It's silly and cute. We walked into this new mom and pop anime store. I'm a huge anime nerd, and my boyfriend likes video games, which they also sell. We separate, and I go look at stuff for my boyfriend. A worker walks up to me and starts chatting, then points at my leg. I have a pretty big tattoo from Naruto on my thigh, among other anime tattoos. He asks if I got that for my boyfriend, and I said no, I've always loved Naruto, and then I showed him my other anime tattoos. He started quizzing me on the lore of the anime, and I told him I wouldn't have spent $1,000 on tattoos of an anime I didn't know about, and I didn't appreciate him trying to catch me in a gotcha moment. He then told me that he didn't believe I could ever fully understand the real story of Naruto and the depth behind it. I told him I didn't need his services, and he can go back to the front desk. He told me I was a rude wannabe jerk and walked into the back, and I continued purchasing my items. I left a review later that basically said one of the employees called me names when I didn't want to prove my nerd cred to him. The owner left a comment on my review asking for an email conversation and asked that I take down my review because people have started complaining about this employee as well as his sale revenue has dropped. I told him I wouldn't, and maybe he shouldn't hire jerks if he doesn't want bad reviews. My friends tell me that I'm overreacting. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. As if Naruto is some grand epic that's hard to understand. A 12-year-old could understand it. OP. I love Naruto, obviously, but it's really not that deep. Not the jerk. You're not overreacting. If the store owner wants to get his revenue back, he can fire the jerk. You are under no responsibility to put up with this kind of treatment. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Not the jerk. I'd edit my review to add what the owner did with screenshots. Well, what do you think? Should OP remove the review or not? Please let us know.
Absolutely not. That would kind of defeat the whole purpose of what reviews are for.
I exposed my manager as a hypocrite. Backstory. I work in a residential facility for people on probation. They can serve out a sentence there on work release or if they're sentenced to our treatment program. So they come and go a lot. Part of my job is sending anything new they bring back to the property office to be inventoried or held as contraband. Stuff that isn't illegal, but they can't have in the facility, like chewing tobacco. They're not allowed to bring outside food or drinks, so part of my job is throwing it away if it's perishable or unwrapped. This guy returned with a bag of burgers and burritos his job was throwing away, so I disposed of it and he complained to the policy compliance manager who runs the property office. She told me that I had to get with that client for financial reimbursement. I tried getting her to understand that I threw that stuff away because it would not keep back in the office, as her own policy states, and she didn't care. Her words to me were,
Property officers are the ones who sort through the property for contraband or disposable items. Your job is not to review the property, just bag it up and label it with their name. Everything goes through property.
She even underlined the word everything in her email. It felt like she was making up her own rules, despite what policy said, because she didn't want to deal with a complaining work release inmate. The malicious compliance. Yesterday, a client returned with a half-eaten bag lunch we provide people leaving for work in case they can't feed themselves. I saw my opportunity. I did exactly what you think and sent a brown bag of half-eaten sandwich and cornbread to be inventoried as property. I saw her email today going off on me for being passive-aggressive or that I need to be retrained. She normally doesn't CC anyone in her emails about issues, but she did today. My direct supervisor, the operations commander, and the deputy director were all included so they could see her complaining at me over the half-eaten food I sent her staff. She must have felt like Obi-Wan having the high ground. Too bad she did in fact underestimate my power. I included even more supervisory staff in my response and directly quoted her original emails to me and pointed out that she had told me her staff were the ones that throw things away and that I was to bag and tag everything. I was later told by my laughing supervisors that the director himself laughed as he told her, "You told him to send you everything. You can't get upset because he did what you said." Edit. Some of the comment notifications I'm getting are from people apparently really upset that I'm throwing food away. While I do agree, it's important to look out for people trying to get their life together on probation. Please let me reassure you that we feed them 3 meals a day in our cafeteria. Make them food trays to be saved for later in a fridge, set aside specifically for people who miss meals due to their work schedule, and always have bag lunches made fresh daily for them to take with them when they leave. There are even vending machines available to them. We are not starving them if they try to bring in outside food. The rules about outside food are made clear to them day one. Chill. Am I the jerk for not wanting my husband's other kid in my house? My husband cheated on me while I was pregnant and had a baby with another woman. I found out after the other kid was born. I've never been okay with this. It's exactly the kind of stuff I tried so hard to have not be a part of my life. If it was possible, I would have divorced him by now, but I'm stuck at a legal dead end and it's not possible. We have a legal and emotional separation agreement though. Since he travels a lot, and between the baby, my parents, and my career, I've been able to avoid thinking too much about it. Well, so I thought. It's been almost 2 years since then, and now he wants to bring that kid into my house. I guess he has some kind of schedule with the other kid's mother that includes visits, and he wants that visitation to be in what is technically still his residence. Absolutely not. I'm not a stepmother to any kid, and unlike in most of these situations, the house we're living in is truly only mine. It's under my parents' names, but I got it when I got POA and they had to go into a care home. I'm not having this kid in it. My husband and our family say that I need to deal with it because I'm still married, that I need to accept my stepkid, and that I'm a jerk for excluding a baby and preventing siblings from having a relationship. I don't agree. This kid may technically be siblings to mine, but I don't need to play mom to this kid to make a relationship happen, and I don't want any of this crap coming into mine or my kid's safe space. Am I crazy for not wanting this kid here? Edit. Why can't you get divorced? Why is he still living there? In my state, to file for divorce, both parties need to have been separated for over a year and living in separate residencies, which requires one of us to move out. He doesn't want a divorce, so of course he won't move out. I can't make him because we're still married. In theory, I could move out and start the clock, but realistically I can't. With the POA, I can't just abandon the house. I couldn't afford to anyway, but even if I did, he would be able to remain there. I would eventually get the house back, but in the meantime, he could easily destroy it, and then I'd have legal problems from that. To clarify on the separation agreement, those don't technically exist in my state, but since we have it notarized, we could use it as an interim agreement on custody and the split on finances once that clock starts, and especially post-filing. Edit 2. Adultery at fault. I could file based on adultery. I don't really want to go that route because it would turn the entire situation very hostile very quickly, and I would still have to have him living here until we could get a court date, which could easily be months and months in the future anyway. I realize it already seems as hostile as possible right now, but day to day things are civil in a way that it wouldn't be if I did that. I also am not confident that it wouldn't look bad because I would have been waiting 2 years after knowing about it to do anything. Not the jerk. This may not be a popular opinion since most on here say you have to be a perfect step-parent and accept all situations, but you are not at all the jerk. I was in a similar situation and still get upset 30 years later. Don't let people tell you what to do or how to feel. It's your house. Tell the father to go someplace else. Also, typically, the partner is aware of the spouse having kids prior to moving in and getting married. A step-parent that tells their partner they don't want anything to do with the kid in question is different, as they knew before, so now they have to live with it as it was always part of the deal. This situation is different. She doesn't even want to be in a relationship with the father. It's exactly like all the other stories that we see recently where the OP is divorced and the ex wants the OP to take care of the step and have siblings for a weekend or something, and each time the OP is not the jerk. The only difference is that she's stuck living with the other parent, and the other parent is using legal loopholes to stay there and stay married, twisting OP's hand as it is. OP, I'm sure you checked all you could legally do in your state and have already thought of it, but just in case, since it's technically not your house, do you have the power of attorney? Is an eviction notice possible? Get a lawyer, a good one. He will bring his other kid. You need a lawyer to evict him. A lot of people who share a residence go through divorce. It shouldn't be this hard without another way out. Get a lawyer and file for divorce and evict him. Not the jerk. Not your kid, not your responsibility. And furthermore, in my opinion, that wouldn't be right having you look after the kid from his affair. Am I the jerk for accidentally telling my fiancé I don't like his sister and she won't be a part of my wedding? This situation is literally ridiculous, but this whole thing has caused a huge divide across the family, so I'm here to get a consensus. Throwaways for privacy, even though there's a good chance my fiancé will see it. I, 26 female, have been with my fiance, Chris, 26 male, for 4 years now. He and his sister, 21 female, Lilac, are very close. They had a pretty rough childhood and always promised each other to be there no matter what. Lilac is a good sister to him, but as a person, truthfully, I can't stand her. She's literally the textbook definition of a bubbly blonde. She is overly charismatic, always giggling, and in general, just acts too immature for my taste. She likes to pull pranks every once in a while on my fiance, and he gets her back, but the whole ordeal just seems childish and obnoxious to me. Ever since we got engaged, I knew I didn't want her in my wedding party, because that means I'd have to spend time with her at my Bachelorette and other parties. Fast forward to last night, and my fiance asks me when I plan on asking Lilac to be a bridesmaid. I got quiet and truthfully said I didn't plan on doing so. This upset him because he said he wants his sister to be a part of the most important day of his life, and that if I didn't do it, he was going to make her a groomswoman to make sure she's included. I can't lie, this set me off. I went off about how I want to feel respected by him and be able to enjoy my wedding day. He said he also wants to enjoy his day, which to be fair, I understand. This is where I may be the jerk. I told him that I have always disliked his sister and wished he would just not include her for once on a day that isn't even about her. He got quiet and went into our guest room to be alone. A couple of minutes later, I got a text from Lilac that she completely respects my decision to not want her in the wedding party, but she's hurt to know what I actually feel about her. I didn't want her to find out at all, and now he's told his whole family about our argument. Half of them are attacking me, and half of them are saying it's my day, so I should be able to enjoy it. Honestly, this whole ordeal is stressful for no reason, because Lilac isn't even upset I don't want her in my wedding party, yet the whole family is upset, and my fiance has been very short with me all day. Am I the jerk? Edit. Just because I don't like her personality doesn't mean I'm mean to her. Being around her drains my social battery, but I've never been mean to her, nor did I want her to find out, ever, especially in this way. I'm just super introverted, and our personalities collide. I don't want her at my Bachelorette party because I want to enjoy it fully and not feel anxious the whole time because the personification of a human firecracker is attending. You're the jerk. You didn't want her in your wedding party because that means you'd have to spend time with her at your Bachelorette party? Boy, do I have some bad news about what's going to happen if you actually marry her brother and legally bind yourself to him and his family for the foreseeable future. To be clear, you're free to not want to have her in your wedding, but if she's going to be your sister-in-law, you might have to get over your distaste of blondes who've, checked list, been bubbly and happy. Don't worry, she may be able to avoid Lilac permanently. The fiancé is rethinking this wedding as we speak. We can only hope OP is correct and her fiancé sees this post despite the anonymous account and changed names. He needs to understand how toxic OP's behavior is so he'll finally call off the engagement and break up with her. I agree. While it is okay to not like someone in your partner's family if there's a good reason for it, my mom doesn't like her sister-in-law because it always has to be about her. My sister's wedding, my grandma tried to convince my sister to do something special for my aunt so she doesn't feel left out. OP literally has no reason to not like her. It seems like Lilac is genuinely a good person, and knowing that OP doesn't like her probably really hurt her. Just because someone is always in a good mood doesn't mean you shouldn't like them. This is like insanely toxic behavior. So she's happy and enjoying life, and this bothers you? Might want to do some inwards reflection there, bud. You're the jerk. It's your fiance's wedding too. It's not all about you. You're the jerk, and you sound jealous of their relationship. It's not just your wedding, it's his wedding too. And if you don't want her there as a bridesmaid, then that's fine. But it's unfair for you to dictate that he can't have her on his side and blow up at him for wanting to include her. Lots of selfishness on your end. That's not a great way to start a marriage. It's not even like she's major drama. You just find her too giggly and obnoxious. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her fiancé? Please let us know.
Has there ever been a wedding where there weren't people fighting about something?
Am I the jerk for telling my pregnant sister she needs to go and making her move out? My sister, Allie, is currently 7 months pregnant with a daughter she's planning to name Violet. Allie moved in after she discovered she was about 2 months pregnant. She and her boyfriend agreed beforehand that they didn't want to settle down and wanted to stay childless. Her boyfriend had a vasectomy and they take other precautions, but Allie still got pregnant. Allie said that getting pregnant changed her mind about not settling down, and she wanted her and her boyfriend to get married so they could raise the baby together. Her boyfriend said he would pay child support and other things, but because of some stuff that happened in his childhood, he knew he wouldn't be a good enough father for Violet. They're still in somewhat contact, but have broken up. Several family members offered to let Allie move in as well, but she chose to move in with me. Since she's moved in, Allie has been a nightmare. She's nice to others, but vicious towards me. Just recently, I didn't buy the right brand of sliced raisin bread. Allie wanted a different brand than the usual, but neglected to tell me that. And she went off on a tirade about how I was a failure in life, and it wasn't surprising my ex cheated on me. Allie never apologizes for her tirades and thinks I should just get over them because the hormones are giving her mood swings. Allie does not work at the moment and also does no help around the house. She's capable of moving, she goes to friends' houses, but will not pick up after herself because she claims those specific chores cause her immense pregnancy pain. Allie expects me to be her servant because she's pregnant. She once made me drive almost 3 hours to bring her food from the specific Italian restaurant because Violet was craving lasagna, it's for her. Anytime I put my foot down or am not 100% cordial with her, as in being tired instead of super enthusiastic, Allie will call my mother and she and other family members will shame me because they say I'm being a jerk to always expect Allie to be perfect when she's in pregnancy pain, and I will never know the demand of pregnancy on your body. I explain my side, but they argue the same things, along with how I should just help Allie because stress is bad for the baby. The tirades and demands for special food and items because Violet wants them have become daily occurrences, so I told Allie last week that we needed to talk. I explained to Allie that I love her, but I just can't deal with her right now. I said I would help her move out and helped pack and bring her things to my mother's. Now my family members are calling me a jerk, saying I kicked out my own sister when she's pregnant. How Allie always looked out for you. Allie's 4 years older than me, and this should have been my turn to take care of her. How Violet's father isn't going to be in her life, and now she has an uncle who threw her out. I just can't handle Allie because of how physically and mentally exhausted I am. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. OP, if your family members are so concerned with her, she can move in with them. And the boyfriend needs to visit the doctor he had his procedure done at and get tested to see if he's even capable of being a father, as it's very likely that Violet is not his baby. Well, what do you think? Should OP kick his sister out or not? Please let us know.
I see why her ex didn't want to stick around, and I do hope he actually gets a paternity test.
Am I the jerk for not wanting my girlfriend to decorate my apartment? I, 29 male, have been with my girlfriend, 24 female, for 2 years now. We have not lived together before, but she's currently 18 weeks pregnant, so I suggested that she move in with me once her lease was up. It ended at the end of June, so she's been living with me for almost 3 weeks now. While we get along well and overall living together has been great, I've noticed that she's started to change things around my apartment. She only brought a few things over since my apartment is fully furnished, so I understand her need to make it feel more like her space. Everything in my apartment is mid-century modern. It's a mid-century modern building, and I bought the apartment because of how much I love that style. Some of the things that she's suggesting or bringing into the apartment absolutely do not go with the vibe. She's taken down some of my artwork and replaced it, cleared off shelves I curated and put her knickknacks on it, went through my pantry and cleared out things she thought were unhealthy, all without asking me. She works from home while I work in the office, so she has a lot more time at the apartment than I do. I just wish she would run things by me first. I'm an architect, she's an editor and doesn't have that same designer eye, which clearly shows. What really bothered me was that she started to throw some things away without asking. I went to take out the trash and saw that some birthday cards I kept were in there. When I asked about it, she said that she was just getting rid of clutter, but her stuff is more like clutter and mine has actual sentimental value. I told her to stop touching things in the apartment, and she pointed out that she should have a say because she lives there, which I agreed with, but she doesn't run anything by me. Now she's being very avoidant and passive-aggressive. So, am I the jerk? Everyone sucks here. You do realize that when you have a baby, your carefully curated apartment vibe will change very much, right? That said, she shouldn't be throwing your stuff out without asking you. Time to sit down, have an adult conversation, and come up with a compromise. Everyone sucks here. I would have said not the jerk if not for the, I told her to stop touching things in my apartment. She has an equal say in what your space looks like and a right to make it feel like her home for her. She's the jerk for making changes without talking to you, and especially for throwing some of your stuff out without your consent. You guys need to have a talk and reach a compromise. Did you go out of your way to make her feel like the home is hers when she moved in? It doesn't necessarily sound like that's the case. Everyone sucks here. Mostly you're the jerk though. It's not your apartment, it's shared now. There should be compromise even if it doesn't go with your vibe. Why should she ask if it's both of your spaces? The only reason I'm saying everyone sucks here is because she threw your cards away. That's not cool. She should have talked to you before throwing your things away. But you really need to figure out how to share space. Have you ever lived with anyone before? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know.
Reddit boy didn't mind when I added these cool new lights above our head. Please let us know if we should keep them in the comments.
Karen didn't show up for work, so I fired her. I own a vape shop. We're a small business, only 12 employees. One of my employees, Peggy, was supposed to open yesterday. Peggy has recently been promoted to manager after 2 solid years of good work as a cashier. I really thought she could handle the responsibility. So I wake up 3 hours after the place should be open, and I have 22 notifications on the store Facebook page. Customers have been trying to come shop, but the store is closed. Employees are showing up to work, but they're locked out. I call Peggy and get no response. I text her, same thing. So I go in and open the store. An hour before her shift was supposed to be over, she calls me back. I ask her if she's okay, and she says she needed to take a mental health day and do some self-care. I'm still pretty upset at this point, but I'm trying to be understanding as I know how important mental health can be. So I ask her why she didn't call me as soon as she knew that she needed the day off. Her response, I didn't have enough spoons in my drawer for that. Frankly, I don't know what that means, but it seems to me like she's saying she cannot be trusted to handle the responsibility of opening the store in the AM. So I told her she had 2 choices. 1, go back to her old position with her old pay. 2, I fire her completely. She's calling me all sorts of names now and says that I'm discriminating against her. None of this would have been a problem if she simply took 2 minutes to call out. I would have got up and opened the store on time, but this no-call, no-show crap is not the way to run a successful business. I think I might be the jerk here because I'm taking away her promotion over something she really had no control over. But at the same time, she really could have called me. So Reddit, I leave it to you. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is Peggy? Please let us know.
After sitting here listening to Reddit boy every day for the past 3 years, I think I could use a day off myself.
Entitled parents stole my meds and refused to give them back. I, 21 male, had a surgical removal of a cyst this afternoon. Mine had a pretty nasty infection, so it had to be removed ASAP. I went to the hospital with my fiance, 19 male, and my parents, who are 62 male and 57 female. Everything went very smoothly, thankfully, but as my parents were driving me and my fiance back to our apartment, we got into a discussion about the medication I was prescribed. Now, my parents are paranoid when it comes to meds. I don't blame them. I'm aware that some can be addictive, and I'm wary of it myself. They straight up told me that I shouldn't take it at all, and just take Tylenol and ibuprofen. I told them I'd rather have the medication I was prescribed just in case my pain got bad once the hospital meds wore off. I wasn't allowed to drive after my surgery, so they were supposed to pick up my medication for me. Well, they did, but with 2 of my pills missing. Well, that's fishy and annoying. I texted my mom basically asking where my meds went. She didn't respond, so I kind of forced it by telling her I'd have to report the pharmacist if it wasn't her. She said,
I took the other 2.
and
I took them because that's all you can legally have and drive your fiancé to work tomorrow. Okay?
wow, I had set money aside for him to be able to get an Uber tomorrow if he needed to anyways, which she would have known had she talked to me about it or even brought up these concerns at all. I was upset. I texted this huge paragraph that was basically saying either give them back or I'm filing a police report, that stealing like this was a felony, that I understand her fear, but this was absolutely not the way to go about it. 40 minutes later, I get a "We're here" text and a pounding on my door. I waddle over and open, and my parents are standing in the doorway, very upset. My dad starts talking about how it was absolutely not okay to threaten legal action and that I needed to apologize. He said it was his fault that no one talked to me about it, that he's sorry, but then goes on a 5-minute rant of how I have an addictive personality. I was a smoker when I was 18. How he's concerned for me. How he would never use the law against me, that the surgeon is giving them out like candy, and that he's heard a lot of cases of people getting addicted to these and didn't want to risk it. I said that being concerned wasn't the issue. He couldn't take away my say on the situation. He couldn't just steal from me just because he's scared. At the very least, he should discuss his concerns with me like an adult. He did not like that. He played this game of keep away with the bottle, holding it out to me and then yanking it away to say more to me. Just kept arguing. I got them back after a lot of fighting. Am I wrong here? I need to know if I overreacted. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. The fact that you think you might be means his gaslighting is working. They stole it from you, lied to you, and then tried to manipulate you, and tried to punish you for your completely normal response. Not the jerk. Surgeons are absolutely not just handing these out like candy. In fact, many chronic pain patients are now having great difficulty getting meds due to the doctor's reluctance. Not the jerk. My mom did the same thing to me all the time because she would always worry. That's why I live with my dad now, and he's never home, so I finally have the freedom I've always wanted. I'd go no contact with them if I were you. They obviously have no clue what they're talking about. Well, what do you think? Was OP the jerk for threatening to call the cops or not? Please let us know.
Sometimes parents mess around and find out.
Insurance firm insists on direct billing? Okay then, have it your way. I may get some insurance-related terms confused because I'm not knowledgeable about private insurance systems outside of my country, India. My cousin is Indian and lives in India and works for a major American cruise line. His usual schedule is 9 months of work sailing around North America and 3 months of vacation time back in India. The maritime insurance company that he's insured with provides medical coverage for him. When he was on vacation in India, he tore his ACL and MCL and injured his meniscus playing football, soccer. It required a ligament reconstruction surgery and some months of rehab before he was fit to work again. There is public health care in India, but for something like knee ligament reconstruction, it still costs money, although not as much as at private hospitals, and also takes time as there is a waiting list. So he decided to go private, which is costlier. So he went to an arthroscopic surgeon and got a letter from him detailing the estimated cost of the surgery, the date, and other relevant medical details. He emailed the details to the insurance company and they approved the surgery. Only one problem. They insisted on direct billing to the doctor. Now, doctors in India are familiar with direct billing, but it's mostly with insurance companies that operate domestically in India. Naturally, the doctor was hesitant to accept the arrangement despite receiving a letter of guarantee from them. He simply wasn't convinced of the legal validity of a letter of guarantee from a foreign insurance company in India. What if they, for some reason, refuse to pay? He can't do anything about it. So at this point, my cousin stepped in and suggested to the company that he'll foot the bill up front and then submit a claim, after which the company can reimburse him. The insurance company seemed to agree at first, but this medical cost containment company they were partnered up with was vehemently opposed to the idea. They insisted on direct billing even though it didn't make a lick of difference in terms of cost. He tried convincing them that no doctor in India would accept this arrangement from a foreign insurance company, but they wouldn't relent. At last, he said forget this and went on a citywide search and finally found a top doctor in one of the most expensive hospitals in the city who was willing to operate on his knee with a letter of guarantee. The doctor also worked in 3 months of post-op physiotherapy costs into the surgery bill. The hospital had the best rooms, the best service, and the highest quality of care. The doctor worked with some of the top athletes in the country, and the final estimated cost was at least 700% more than the previous doctor. The insurance company didn't object and simply approved the surgery. He expected them to question the cost, but it was only around $8,000, which is the equivalent of like 4 ambulance rides in America. That must be a paltry sum for the company. At the end of the day, my cousin got the best care possible because of the insurance company's inexplicable insistence. Or maybe they had good reason, but they lost money at the end of the day. Edit. Everyone amazed at the $8,000 bill. Let me tell you, it's a small amount for Americans, but it's still a big bill in India. A lot of Americans are flocking to India for surgeries for this particular reason. You receive great quality healthcare at some of the best hospitals here, and the end cost is almost a fraction of what you would end up paying in the US, and that's including for the flight tickets and hotel tickets at hotels like Hilton and Marriott. It's kind of depressing to admit that that price is actually more like 2 ambulance rides. If that. My son tried to refuse an ambulance ride because of cost. It was more than that for the single ride between hospitals. My brother had to have a ride for a non-emergency procedure between hospitals, different towns about 45 minutes apart. The first hospital refused to release him so my parents could take him to the other hospital. The ride was billed at over $10,000. Am I the jerk for telling a guy on the bus I'd rather he not sit next to me? I, 35 female, commute into work in the city on Mondays and it's a 3.5-hour trip. I normally sit near the front and there's always lots of extra seats open, including lots with open seats open, so you don't need to sit next to anyone if you don't want to. I sit up front near the driver because it feels safer. Lots of people put their bags on the empty seat next to them and move them when someone asks to sit down. Previously, I always kept my bags on my lap while people were boarding, and if no one sat next to me, I'd expand a bit. A few weeks ago, about 20 minutes into the trip, a guy gets up and asks, "Do you mind if I sit here?" I said no problem, and he sat down. I'm catching up on work, and he seems fine. Then he begins to manspread and starts consistently applying pressure to the armrest area. This is one of my pet peeves. I loathe having to make myself physically small so that other people, to be honest, it's almost always men, can spread out like no one else is allowed to have personal space. But whatever, it's transit. It sucks, but so it goes. For the record, we're both fairly lean people. Neither of us appears to physically need to take up more than our allotted space. I didn't say anything, but I kept my legs and arms firmly on my armrest. Middle armrest, we each had one, refusing to budge. He kept giving me side-eye, applying more pressure, etc., but eventually seemed to settle into just applying pressure. Annoying, but whatever. Once I had to get some water, and he immediately took over my armrest. When I was done, I made eye contact to assert dominance, said, "Pardon me." He said sorry, and I got my armrest back. Pressure resumed. Annoying, but not enough for me to feel it was worth escalating or changing seats. Well, guess who takes this bus every Monday morning now? That's right, this guy. I started putting my bag down on the seat next to me until after he boards and then move it. I move it immediately and welcome anyone who asks to sit next to me during boarding time. Week 2, he did ask once the bus had started into its route. I said no problem and then got up and went to sit somewhere else. He gave me an affronted look. I sat in another set of open double seats on the other side of the bus. Week 4, he left me alone. Week 5, he did the same post-boarding move. This time, there weren't any side-by-side seats where both were open, but there were lots of open single seats. This time, I said, "I'm sorry. If you don't mind sitting in one of the other open seats, I'd really appreciate it." He glared at me, then started calling me all these mean names under his breath before going to sit somewhere else. At the destination, he caught up with me and said, "You didn't have to be such a jerk," and stormed off. Normally, I never discourage people from sitting next to me when they ask, so maybe I'm the jerk for telling him no. I could have gotten up and moved to one of the open seats, but I just really didn't want to. Not the jerk. You should honestly report the behavior to the driver. He was purposely targeting you. Not the jerk. I wouldn't have felt comfortable sitting next to him for 3.5 hours and there were other seats available. His reaction would make me want to get another bus. OP. I wish there was another bus or literally any other way to transit in. I'd happily pay a bit more for a train to get away from him, but they haven't restarted the normal morning train after cutting it off when ridership dropped 2 years ago. This happened to me once when I was 21. I was on an empty subway car and this guy came in and sat right next to me. So I started coughing really hard, just all over my stuff, really gross. He ended up getting up and moving to the next car. Not the jerk. He's being a creep. No one with good intentions specifically wants to sit next to the same person on public transit all the time. If he tries to interact with you again, I'd tell him that you're going to report his behavior to the bus company. Not the jerk. I'm guessing he has a crush on you, and in his weird, twisted reality, thought this was some kind of weird flirting. He was upset because you made it clear to him that it isn't. His fragile ego was probably dented and he lashed out. Do you have the same regular bus driver? If so, I'd mention it to them so they can keep an eye on the situation. If not, you could report it to the company, but if you don't want to do that, just be on guard around him. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the guy who kept trying to sit next to her? Please let us know. Dude probably thought they were gonna start dating and get married and live happily ever after. Am I the jerk for asking my girlfriend to not embarrass herself at dinner parties? My girlfriend had kind of a rough upbringing, and now she turned out really successful. She's also probably the most self-confident and self-assured person I know, which I really admire, but just once in a while she says stuff that's socially uncomfortable. For example, we were going to a dinner party and my friend kept apologizing for her messy car. My girlfriend said, Girl, I grew up in a hoarder house and I'm in the middle of shoveling garbage out of that house. There's nothing on earth that could disgust me anymore. And while that's true, it was kind of an uncomfortable overshare. Another time, her coworker was talking about how their kid was really shy and she didn't know how to help. My girlfriend was like, "Give her time, I'm sure she'll grow into herself." I didn't talk to anyone in school. Literally, I had no friends if you'll believe it. One last time, my girlfriend and I were at a networking event, and one of my coworkers joked about how my girlfriend should enjoy grabbing thirds of a food when she's young, because she can't eat like that forever. Without missing a beat, she said, "Oh, I don't think about food restriction like that anymore. It's an eating disorder trigger. Anyway, I'm trying to bulk up." Anyway, we had a big argument about it. We were invited to a dinner at my company's CEO's house this coming weekend along with a few peers. I asked her to not share anything uncomfortable there. She asked what I meant, and I gave her the same examples. I told her that kind of shamelessness about stuff most people find shameful is awkward. She was like, "But it's not really shameful. And renovating and flipping a house? So many of your coworkers talk about that." I said it wasn't the house flipping, it was the fact that it was her family home, and it was a hoarder house, and it was weird to shamelessly talk about having no friends. She was like, "That stuff is in the past. Why would I be insecure now?" I got exasperated and asked her to just not share stuff that most people would be embarrassed to say at the dinner. And she got angry and said that it sounded like I thought her whole life is embarrassing. So should she shut up? I said no, just talk about current stuff, like you just got a promotion, traveled to Europe, bought your dream car. And she snapped at me, "But I'm also still shoveling garbage every day. So it sounds like you're just embarrassed of me. Forget you for saying I should have more shame. I'm proud of myself. It sounds like you're the one who's ashamed." I'm still worried about how this dinner party will go, and I'm questioning whether I messed up by saying something. Am I the jerk for asking my girlfriend to not embarrass herself at a dinner party with my company's CEO? You're the jerk. Your girlfriend sounds like an emotionally intelligent woman relating to people in conversation. None of these are out of place for the topics. You might not like her saying it, but none of what you've described is weird or uncomfortable. She's right, you sound embarrassed by her past. I'm freelance and downsized, but I used to have a small amount of employees. If any one of them had a girlfriend at an event who spoke like this, I'd think she was straightforward, relatable, human, and sociable. None of that is shameful. You're the jerk. Sounds like you're extremely repressed and would be much better to find someone more your speed. Your girlfriend seems like too much of a free spirit and emotionally intelligent person. Find someone more emotionally stopped up like you. OP is hilarious. He's so insecure and clueless. It's hard to believe he didn't realize what he was writing as he posted. Girlfriend is a well-adjusted adult, secure, outgoing, and sounds delightful. She can do so much better. You're the jerk. Your girlfriend isn't shameless. She's talking about real life. She doesn't care what other people think about her. You, on the other hand, have a lot of growing up to do. You're embarrassing, honestly. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know.
If I were her, I'd let one rip at that dinner party and see how embarrassed he is then.
Am I the jerk for buying my daughter a new car for her 16th birthday without talking to my wife about it, or buying new cars for my sons? I have 4 kids, Lucas, who's 24, Jace, 22, Henry, 17, and Katie, 16. When Katie was born, I was very worried that we might end up favoring and spoiling her since she's our only daughter and youngest. I tried my best to never show favoritism and always treat my kids equally, but it turned out the opposite of what I expected. My wife clearly favors our sons. I tried everything. I talked to her, tried therapy, asked her parents to talk to her, showed her research about the negative side effects of favoritism, but nothing worked. I helped them buy a car. They each had to save money, and I would double the money they have saved and buy a car with it. We also have a tradition that the birthday boy or birthday girl will choose all the plans for that day, where we go, what we eat, etc. That was also the plan for Katie's birthday. On the day of Katie's birthday, Henry had a basketball game, and my wife told us she wants to go with Henry instead of coming with us to celebrate Katie's birthday, because apparently it was an important game. Henry told her she doesn't have to come, but she insisted she wanted to be there. We argued over this, but she ended up going there, and Jace went with them as well. I asked Katie what she wants to do, but she bursted out crying and said she doesn't want to do anything. Lucas went to her room and talked to her and finally convinced her to come with us, but she refused to choose what to do and she was silent the whole time, so I did the only thing I knew would make her happy. I took her to a car shop and told her she can choose whatever she wants and I'll pay for it and she gets to keep all the money she has saved. It really improved her mood. She chose a car and then we went to her favorite restaurant. Then they left me and went out together because apparently they wanted some sibling time and I'm too old for what they wanted to do. When she came back home, she seemed very happy and told me she loved her birthday. When my wife heard about it, she got mad at me and said I had no right to buy a car without talking to her, and it's not fair that Katie got a new car for free when our sons had to save money for a used car. I know it was probably wrong to do this, but it made Katie happy and Lucas thinks I did right. Not the jerk. You're making up for the lack of effort on your wife's part. She can be mad all she wants. If she had been there, then maybe you could have talked to her, but she wasn't. I'm glad your kiddo had a good 16th birthday, and I hope this doesn't cause too many issues in the family. It's already causing a lot of issues. That basketball game wasn't the most important game of his life. Her daughter literally burst out crying because of her awful mother's favoritism. Hopefully OP's daughter goes no contact with her mother and realizes she missed out on a good relationship with her one and only daughter. Not the jerk. Man, I really wanted to say you're the jerk because that's a big decision to make without asking your partner. But given that you walked into a dealership and said, "Pick a car, it's on me," I'm assuming you have some degree of serious money, so we'll go with the assumption that's not an issue. Not the jerk. But I would maybe talk to your sons, who seem innocent in all of this, about why you did it, and maybe do something nice for them too. Speaking of cars, if you could have any car right now for free, which one would you choose? Please let us know.
Just give me a DeLorean so my life can be complete.
I would like a raise, and time off, and I want to start this off by clarifying that this is not my story. It's the story of someone very close to me, and I will leave out a large amount of specific detail because quite a bit of the info is not mine to reveal. The build-up to the revenge is that this person had a horrible employer. She worked HR and managed payroll at what was effectively a nursing home. I don't know if they call themselves that, but it's what they are. The company had a bit of a good old boys club going on, with all of the highest level management being older men, who all did less work and got more pay than pretty much everyone else. There were regular complaints from women who worked there, and many women were fired for absolutely absurd reasons, followed by their male coworkers getting raises. That in and of itself was bad, but it's not what instigated the need for revenge. What caused the burning desire to get back at the company was when the company fired my friend's manager, who was a woman, because she took a week off after literally breaking a leg, badly. The HR department was already badly understaffed, so my friend had to take on the responsibilities of this manager without any pay bonus. She requested a pay bonus multiple times, denied each time. A month or so later, the company hires a new manager to replace the old one, at nearly twice the salary. The new manager is an older man. I'm not entirely sure what this guy actually did during the day because my friend continued to do all of the managerial tasks, and she knows that for a fact because the guy's account didn't have access to the systems he needed access to, and he never asked for that access. For 6 months, my friend showed this manager issues with their system, including payroll, and explained that she was not only the only employee who knew how to use the payroll system, but she was the only one with access to it. The jerk ignored her and made regular comments about how she was replaceable and useless. One day, she lost it. She set up a bot with her credentials to automatically assign her pay each pay period, according to her actual salary, so not stealing or anything. She then carefully plans her next move and puts in her 2-week notice, right before a large department-wide week off, and right before her only coworker has a 2-week vacation. She wouldn't have time to train the coworker even if the coworker was in the country. The manager still dismissed her, thinking he could just hire someone who knew what they were doing. Little did he know, she had tweaked with the payroll software over her time there. Nothing super awful, but it was very different from what the base software was. She was the only person who knew how to properly use it, and the only person in the whole company, including the CEO, who had access to the necessary numbers to actually run the payroll. When she leaves, after the 2 weeks, the company has 2 whole pay periods where they do not pay their employees. They can't. But my friend still gets paid because they never disabled her automatic payment thing. They couldn't. Eventually, they called her and basically begged her to consult with them on their payroll. For the past 6 months, she's been paid $250 an hour for 5 hours a week to run the company's payroll, fully remote, even though it was an in-person job before. And to top it all off, she doesn't even actually work the 5 hours. She wrote a script on her personal device to process payroll for her. She just has to press one button. She's working another job now, but wow, they really messed around and found out. Am I the jerk for refusing to change my diet for my wife? My wife, 27 female, and I, 29 male, have been married for 6 years. I work as a Python developer. My wife is a stay-at-home mom to our 4-year-old son. For the past year, I've been trying to incorporate more exercise since I'm having a lot of back pain, muscle cramps, difficulty climbing stairs, etc., basically because of my sedentary job. So now I do swimming early in the morning and in the evening for 1.5 hours each and every day, totaling 3 hours of swimming. I also do yoga every morning before swimming. As a result of this, I'm feeling extremely hungry almost all the time. As per my exercise routine, I should eat about 4,500 to 5,000 calories per day. Most often, I eat a bowl of oatmeal and boil eggs for breakfast, egg and cheese sandwiches for morning snack, ham and cheese sandwiches, and a hearty soup for lunch, a milkshake made with honey, almonds, any fruit, flaxseed, coconut milk, and coconut oil for afternoon snack, and pasta and grilled meat for dinner. I also have dessert, ice cream or a brownie at night if I'm still hungry. My wife recently was told by her doctor that if she doesn't start putting effort to lose weight, there was high health risk. She was put on a strict diet of about 1,500 calories a day, along with gradually increasing exercise. She's been finding it really hard to stick to her diet because she misses the food that she used to eat before. She told me a few days ago that I should follow the same diet as her, but eat more portions. She said that she feels tempted by the food I eat. I suggested to her that she speak to her therapist about this because I have very different health requirements from her, but she thinks I'm being selfish by not supporting her in weight loss journey. The thing is, I need to eat insane portions of food if I just eat veggies, fruits, and lean meat because my calorie requirement is way higher than hers. My wife is refusing to talk to me, saying that I'm a terrible husband for not helping her. I asked her if me eating in my workroom and not bringing the food into the other areas would help her feel less tempted, but she said just knowing that there's food that she shouldn't eat in the house, she'll feel tempted. Am I the jerk? Edit. I do childcare while I'm working from home, so our son plays sitting next to me while I work. She just has to make breakfast and lunch for him, and we have a 50-50 chore split, so she can do what she likes after feeding him and doing her share of chores. I work full-time, but I don't have a stressful job, so I can still do chores and childcare at home while working. Not the jerk. She's being very unreasonable. Why is her diet more important than yours? I agree that she should talk with a therapist about being tempted by other food. That's not your fault or responsibility. Not the jerk. She should absolutely speak to a dietitian as well as her therapist because cravings are her problem. She can be tempted just walking out in the world watching people eat a donut or having a venti iced caramel macchiato, but they shouldn't all stop and eat what she needs to eat. You can encourage her and support her in her journey, but it doesn't involve you just eating identically so she doesn't feel tempted. Not the jerk. Diets, weight loss, weight gain, exclusion, etc. can be tricky business and often play havoc with the emotions of the dieter. There's a lot of self tied up in favorite foods and meals with family and partners, even without things like changing energy levels or hunger pains. When there is tasty, energy-rich food being cooked and eaten in the house, it's going to be a little vexing. However, once she turns it into you being a terrible husband for not supporting her weight loss journey without recognizing that she's trying to shift your fitness journey, she becomes the jerk. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
Reddit boy doesn't complain when I put him on my cottage cheese diet. Do you, Reddit boy? Help me.
Do whatever and figure it out later? Roger that. I had a reverse situation like this. In my biology class, we had to do group presentations on diseases. My group had COPD. I was paired up with 2 others, Alex and Valerie. Valerie was the typical loudmouth bully, not in an American cheerleader sense, but in a please don't slam me against a wall intimidating way. Alex was the quiet best friend of the popular guys, nice enough in general, but lazy to the core. In my country, people get divided into academic levels at age 11, and they both have been in the top levels, so they were book smart to some degree. I, however, had purposefully chosen to go down a level because of my mental health, so I was a perfectionist and they knew it. Right when we got told to start working on it, they just kept ignoring me and chatting with their friends. When I asked them how would they know what to present to the class if they didn't research it all, they basically told me to just do whatever and we'll figure it out. So I did. I typed out an entire research document, multiple pages of notes and references, anything and all I could find on COPD that I could understand, and converted that into a comprehensive, beautifully designed PowerPoint presentation. When Presentation D-Day had arrived, I turned up to class well prepared, printouts and USB drive and Easter pack bag, ready to wow the class. The other two soon came to me asking what the game plan was, as they hadn't even as much as typed the word into Google. I told them not to worry, I had thought of everything, and I wasn't lying. When my group got called, I confidently walked to the front of the class, my teammates in tow sweating. Dear Mr. Bean, he looked like his twin with an even bigger mole, and class, my presentation is about COPD. I will be presenting it as Valerie and Alex refuse to cooperate with me on this project. I will, immediately followed by the class erupting in, "Oh!" reactions, total confused stutters and yells from the two next to me, and the teacher looking at the duo bewildered. Is that so, Alex? Valerie? When the two couldn't even answer what the topic was, they immediately tried blaming me for excluding them. But the teacher had witnessed their little tea parties happening during class, so he told us to drop the presentation and to each send in our own individual research documents as a replacement task. I already had them ready to go. No one ever tried to mess with me during assignments after that again. My ex-wife, Karen, refuses to let our kids have pets. I'm divorced, 6 years, and remarried 2 years. I have 2 sons with my ex, who are 11 and 13, both male. My wife has 1 son who's 9, male. My kid's mom lives less than a mile away. It's close enough for the kids to walk over, but far enough to be separate space. My boys move back and forth between their moms and my house usually once a week. We're flexible, especially during the summer because of travel, kid activities, etc. My wife's son lives with us full time. My wife and I have been talking with the kids about getting a pet that they would personally be responsible for at our house. This has been going on since December, and we told the kids we would finally get the pets when all of our summer travel was done. Since then, the kids have been excited about the prospect of having their own pets. We asked them to research their chosen pet, determine what its needs were and what kind of common health problems that kind of pet could have, and how to avoid them. The kids all presented their reports and did an awesome job starting out as responsible pet owners. My kids started thinking about how they would take care of their pets when they were with their mom. We presented their options as we saw them. Come over from time to time, ask for help from someone that's here all the time, bring the pets back and forth. They decided they would like it best if they could bring their pets back and forth between the houses. We said that it would be okay with us, but they had to talk to their mom about it. I let them know that it was their responsibility to initiate that conversation. 2 weeks ago, I reach out to my ex to see what her answer is regarding the pets moving back and forth. She lets me know how the kids approached that conversation, saying, "Dad says we can bring the pets back and forth." I apologize and let her know that that wasn't my intent. I clarify that we're fine with any of their 3 options for caring for these pets. She replies, "In concept, I don't disagree with it." And also later in the conversation, "It's totally unfair to expect me to secondarily be responsible for these pets." I'm confused, but leave that conversation feeling certain that she doesn't want to participate. So I decide that I will take care of the pets while the boys are away. Yesterday, we bought the youngest 2 their pets. They are ecstatic, and it's adorable how they're caring for them. I get an angry message from my ex stating that the purchase of their pets is an imposition on them, regardless of whether they go to their house or not, and a bit of patronizing.
I understand that you and your wife are excited about having an autonomous family unit of your own, but you continually make decisions together in a vacuum that impact the wider scope of immediate family, and it's really not okay.
Am I the jerk for buying these pets without her approval? My dad's girlfriend demands I babysit for free. I, 19 female, have 8 younger siblings and 1 older sibling, 2 biological sisters who are 21 and 16, 2 half-siblings who are 5 and 3, and 3 step-siblings, 13, 10, and 7, all on my mom's side. My dad and his girlfriend, I'm calling her Franny, have 2 boys who are 1 year old and 2 months old. I don't live at home since I share an apartment with my sister who's 21. We live pretty close to my mom and stepdad's house since they usually need help with the kids and offer payment for us to watch them and help out around the house. My mom, 2 weeks ago, asked me and my sister, who's 21, if we could come babysit from Wednesday evening to Monday afternoon, while her and my stepdad take our 16-year-old sister out of state for a college tour. My mom and stepdad offered to pay us each $100 a day to watch the kids in-house. We agreed since we would only be watching our half-siblings and our step-siblings. Everything was going fine until Friday morning. I was putting the kids into the car seat so I could take them to their day camp, when my dad and his girlfriend showed up at the house with her 2 kids. Franny jumped out of the car and ran up to me. She kept saying she was so excited she caught me and asked if my car had extra seats so she could put the baby's car seats in. Confused, I asked what she was talking about. Franny told me she heard my sister and I were babysitting and she was going to drop her kids off with me so I could watch them while her and my dad went on a romantic weekend getaway. I told her no, that I was only watching my mom and stepdad's kids and that I didn't have the time or the space for another 2 younger, more high-maintenance kids. Franny began getting upset and screaming that I was selfish and ruining her weekend and that her babies are easy and don't even cry that much. I persisted and continued telling Franny no and saying I'm not obligated to watch her kids. After 20 minutes of her screaming, she finally got in her car and left. All day I've been getting texts and calls from Franny and my dad calling me rude, selfish, and a jerk for not helping her and my dad. I've talked to my mom and stepdad about it, who think I'm in the right and need to ignore Franny and my dad, while my sister, who's 21, and my other sister, who's 16, think I was being harsh and I could have watched the babies for a bit while the other kids were at camp. Am I the jerk? Update. I'm at work right now, so all of this is from my sister, who's 21. At around 6 o'clock, Franny dropped off the kids in car seats with bags and rang the doorbell and ran back to the car, then drove off. Thankfully, my sister grabbed the kids and brought them inside. She spent an hour wrangling all of the kids, then realized this was too much and called my dad's parents, who live an hour away. Thankfully, they drove over and picked up the babies. When I get home, I'm going to try and call Franny and my dad. My mom and stepdad are super upset and want to come home early. So let me get this straight. Your dad's girlfriend heard you were babysitting 5 kids that someone else was paying you for and thought, "What a perfect opportunity for me to dump my kids on someone else, have a romantic getaway, and not have to pay for babysitting because she's already getting paid by someone else." You are absolutely not the jerk. Your dad and his girlfriend are selfish, thoughtless, and entitled. Not the jerk. Your mom asked you in advance and paid you. Franny just stopped by and thought you'd take them. Mom has respect for you and your time with how she asked you. Franny felt entitled to your time. 2 completely different things. Good for you for standing up for yourself. Well, what would you have done in this situation? Would you have watched Franny's babies for her or not? Please let us know.
I'd be calling the cops on her is what I'd be doing.
Am I the jerk for having high expectations for my bachelorette party? I, 25 female, am getting married to my wonderful fiance, 31 male, this fall. A week ago, I had a bachelorette party. While most girls dream of their weddings, I dreamt about my bachelorette weekend. I put a lot of planning into this weekend, made a lot of phone calls, reservations, everything basically. For Thursday night through Sunday morning, me and 25 of my closest girlfriends rented a house. From the start, it was a disaster. I had told my girls to get to the house early on Thursday so they could decorate and set up before I got there. Well, I got to the house at 3 and they weren't done decorating, so that bummed me out because I wanted that wow moment when I came in and saw the setup. I felt robbed, but we still had a decent first night. Friday, I woke everyone up at 7 a.m. to make breakfast and get ready because we had a packed day. Vineyards, boat, lunch, happy hour drinks, then dinner and the clubs. I was getting complained to all afternoon because people said they were being rushed from place to place and had to carry change of clothes all day, but we only had limited time in this city and I wanted to make the most of it. Saturday was the worst. We had brunch at 9 a.m. and no one was awake in time, so it only ended up being me and a few loyal bridesmaids. We went shopping after for a few hours, and when we got back to the house, no one was even apologetic, even though I was close to tears all day. The last straw for me was later that night when we were going to dinner and nobody was wearing the matching shirts we got for the weekend. People wanted to wear their own stuff, but that's not what we agreed on, even though my maid of honor notified everyone. At this point, I said forget it. This weekend was ruined and locked myself in my room to cry. It was even worse when I came out a few hours later and half the girls had gone out anyway, without me, aka the actual bride. I ended up driving home early on Sunday and left the house a mess for the girls to pick up because I was so upset. Now it's been almost a week. No one has really texted me except some bridesmaids and the maid of honor. I know I sound bridezilla-ish, but these are supposed to be my friends, and we were supposed to celebrate me all weekend, and I felt neglected, and I'm just really upset. I understand these expectations may seem like a lot, but I made my expectations clear to the group, and they just let me down so bad. Tell me, am I the jerk? Edit, because people are asking me the same questions. 1. Yes, I have 25 people who I genuinely wanted to celebrate with. 6 of them are in my wedding party, and the other 19 were college friends, childhood friends, and work friends, etc. 2. Maid of honor sent out the itinerary months ago. It was very clear the activities I planned and their prices per person. If someone had wanted to skip out, it wouldn't be a problem, but all the girls paid accordingly, so they knew what they were getting themselves into. You're the jerk for all the control and then running off crying. No, you can't control 25 other people. Your expectations were too high. Also, who has 25 friends? This seems like some sorority craziness. Right? Sounds more like OP wanted a lot of people to fawn all over her for several days. You're the jerk. 25 people is not your closest friends. That's a large group of acquaintances, which also includes your closest friends. I guarantee you that not all of them consider you to be their best friend. This means you were dragging people who were trying to politely support an extended member of their friend group into a huge elaborate event where every detail had to be micromanaged for your personal benefit. You even complained that some of them did their own thing while you were pouting and hiding away from everyone, rather than sit patiently at the door for you to once again grace them with your presence. Yes, you do sound like a bridezilla. You're the jerk. Did no one tell you this itinerary was way too much? You made your expectations clear, but did you not think at all about what everyone else wanted? I know it's your weekend, but that doesn't mean you get to cart everyone around like a kindergarten class. You're the jerk. I think it's amazing that 25 people care enough about you to devote so many days to a bachelorette party. Your expectations were too high, your demands too specific, and your attitude too controlling. You could have had an amazing long weekend sharing good times with your friends if you had just relaxed and embraced their needs and interests too. Instead, you've probably changed their perception of you for the worse. If I were you, I would apologize. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or everyone else? Please let us know.
Bruh, I feel worn out just hearing this story.
Finally got to tell a jerk customer how I felt about assisting them. This happened a few years ago, but it felt oh so satisfying. For a period of time, I worked for a New England-based hardware/home and garden store. We had a customer that was the most impolite individual, definitely thought of retail people as lower than himself, and treated every clerk with contempt. In this story, there's me, there's the jerk customer, and the store manager. Well, my course had changed and I moved on from said job and was working as a carpenter and was in that location to buy something for a project I was working on. The uniform at the store was a dark green polo and a dark green fleece as a cover-up. I'm a woodsy guy. Almost all of my clothes are brown, tan, duck, black, or green. And this day, I happened to be wearing dark brown pants with a dark green sweatshirt from a local building supply company, dark green with white labeling of said company. Pretty easy to see it wasn't a store-issued garment with any real observation. I'm in the hardware aisle, where there are also lubricants for loosening bolts and whatnot, which I was looking at. This guy walks into the aisle, and I made no notice besides that someone else had entered the space. Jerk customer clears throat. Me in my head. This guy sounds horrible. Jerk customer clears his throat again.
Excuse me?
Me. Sorry. Thinking that I'm blocking the shelves and he needs something off of it. Jerk customer.
No, you're supposed to help me.
Me. No, I'm not. I no longer work for this company.
That's BS. I see you in here regularly. You were even wearing a uniform.
Me. This is a insert building company. Sweatshirt. Pointing out the label on me. I haven't worked here for almost a year, and the reason I'm in here regularly is because, like you, it's the closest hardware store to my house. Jerk customer.
Well, you're going to help me anyway, because you know this stuff about what I need.
Me. Nope, in no way is that happening. I didn't get paid enough when I did work here to put up with your bad attitude, and now that I'm not making any money for this interaction, I'm definitely not putting up with it.
I'm going to tell the store manager about this.
Me. And she's going to do what exactly? Hold your hand and tell you it'll be okay? She doesn't hold sway over me or my actions in this moment, so good luck with that. Jerk customer.
I can't believe how rude you are.
Me. That's rich. Are you really that self-unaware? Have you ever not actually thought about why, when I did work here, I was the only one who would help you? I'll clue you in. It was because no one else wanted to, and I wanted to keep them from your condescension and entitled attitude. Now about this time, store manager had come around to find me as we have a good relationship and wanted to catch up. She heard a decent amount of what was said on the way over. As she walks into the aisle, jerk customer turns to her and says,
Your so-called former employee is verbally attacking me and saying that no one ever wants to help me because I'm a jerk.
Well, store manager doesn't have much of a filter and responds with, well, he is a former employee and hasn't worked here for nearly a year, and frankly, he's not wrong. The look on his face was priceless, and he just harumphed and told her he would take his business elsewhere, which only got a simple, you do that, from her. We had a good laugh, and the vindication from her, coupled with the opportunity to say what I did, was fantastic. Am I the jerk for dropping my sibling off at my mom's date? For my whole life, I, 20, have always been the live-in babysitter for my mom. I thought that once I moved out, I would no longer have to babysit my siblings, who are 6, 8, and 10 anymore. But boy, was I wrong. As soon as I turned 18, I got married and moved out. I know you are all going to judge me for that, but I'm happy with my husband. My husband doesn't mind me having my younger siblings over as he loves the kids, but it's gotten absolutely ridiculous. My mom doesn't even ask me before she drops off my siblings. She will literally just drop my siblings off at my door and leave. She's even done this on our date nights. It's unfair to me and my husband, even though my husband has been accepting this with grace and is really good with my siblings. I'm actually pregnant myself, and I've been feeling the typical pregnancy symptoms, so my husband has been picking up more of the load of watching them when they're here. I've told my mom many times to stop doing this, as my husband and I have a life of our own and don't want to be watching your kids all the time, and to at least let us know before dropping them off. Recently, my mom did this again, and I wasn't having it. I called my mom after she dropped my siblings off and found out where she went, which was on a date at a restaurant, and went there with my siblings. I found where my mom was seated, went up to her with my siblings following me, and said, "Hey mom, I have a few errands to run, so I decided to drop them off with you," and left while my mom was in the middle of objecting. My mom was upset and ringed my phone down. I didn't answer until the next day. When I did, I got an earful with her telling me that she raised me and went through months of pregnancy. The least I can do is watch my siblings when she needs time off. I told her that she didn't ask me to watch them and that I cannot accept her dropping them off at my place without even asking me if I'm available to watch them. She said that we are family and that I'm supposed to look after them because I'm their older sister, and that I embarrassed her in front of a guy she really liked. My husband does feel bad about what I did and feels like there was a better way to deal with my mom than how I did. Do you all think I was in the wrong here? Not the jerk. Tell her the next time she drops them off without asking you, you'll call the cops on her. Also, you don't owe her for giving birth to you. She chose to have you. OMG, just no. 100% not the jerk. I've always hated scenarios where parents use an older kid as a third, or in this case, second, parent. She chose to have those kids, not you, and to expect you to parent when she doesn't want to is absolutely ridiculous. You have every right to feel the way you do and are under no obligation to help her. OP. I'm basically their second mom. They sometimes even call me mom and will cry when my mom picks them up. I love my siblings, but I really just want to be able to do my own thing sometimes. Not the jerk. Your mom has conditioned them to cling to you. Blame her. Quit answering your phone and your door no matter what. Yes, you are their sister, always will be, but that doesn't mean you aren't also your own person, a wife, and you have a life. Time to create some distance between you and your mom. She gave birth to them, not you. I'm so sick of parents acting like their grown kids owe them for giving birth to them and raising them. You did not ask to be born, and being fed, clothed, protected, and hopefully loved are basic requirements for parents that they sign up for the moment they decide to be parents. You do not owe your mother a darn thing. She decided to have these kids. This is on her, not the jerk. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for a dress that my bridesmaid ripped in the store? I, 25 female, am getting married. My future husband, John, has no siblings, one aunt, and only one first cousin, Casey, who's 23 female. So John asked me to include her in the wedding. I told all 3 bridesmaids that I'd pay for their dresses. At the appointment, the girls picked a few dresses from the display models up front. The sales associate explained that she would go to the back and pull the ready-to-try dresses, and that going up 1 to 2 sizes is normal for formal wear. The plan was for them to head into the changing area, and when they all had a dress on, they'd come out as a group to show me. John's mother and aunt, Casey's mother, pulled me to look at the bridal accessories, so this part is secondhand from my bridesmaids. The associate brought dresses into the dressing area, and Casey was irritated that she fell into the plus line, which started at 18, both on principle and because 2 of the dresses apparently weren't available in plus size to try on. She argued and refused to try on anything above a 14, but the associate warned her not to go below a 16. Casey has always squeezed herself into tight-fitting clothes and is very focused on, in her words, unfair and misleading sizing between brands, refusing to see that in reality she's about a size 18 or 20, so 22 to 24 in formal wear. While I was on the other side of the store, I saw Casey quickly walk out and grab a dress off of a mannequin, but I didn't think too much of it. However, the sales associate pulled me aside and told me that a $250 charge for a dress that ripped would be added to my bill since I was taking care of everything. When I went to talk to Casey, I found her struggling to zip a too small dress, and the size 14 dress, the one she grabbed, was hanging up and had burst open at the side. I told Casey politely but firmly that I wasn't going to pay for the damaged dress and that she would need to cover the cost herself, to which she insisted that it was my job to do it. We went back and forth, unproductively, as John's mother and aunt came back over, and one of the other bridesmaids told me that the sales associate had strongly cautioned against trying smaller dresses. Casey attempted to start another argument about sizing, and I cut her off. I told her that there's no way she's a size 14, and I don't care if she believes it out in the real world, but for the purpose of this trip and my wedding, I needed her to accept that. Casey angrily went back into her dressing room and refused to come out, and her mother told me to just pay the $250 since Casey was still an apprentice at the hair salon and didn't make that much money. My bridesmaids backed me up, but Casey's aunt, and to a certain extent John's mother, essentially said that Casey wouldn't be there around those dresses in the first place if it wasn't for me. Casey's mom ultimately paid for the damaged dress, but am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You offered to pay for their dresses, not what they damaged. Her irresponsibility is not your responsibility. I'd kick her out as a bridesmaid at this point too. She sounds like she's going to cause more trouble before the wedding is done. Yes, she's already demonstrated that she lacks common sense. She needs to be responsible for her own actions and also be realistic. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. And what is this logic of, if you hadn't had Casey around these dresses, she never would have tried to squeeze into one that was 4 to 5 sizes too small? OP. It was essentially like, we know you have money, and these girls are here doing what you want for your special day. Plus, you already offered to pay, so why aren't you paying? You were the one who picked out this store and told them to try on these dresses. Not the jerk, but Casey is. We all know these dresses are expensive. Put the word wedding to it, and the price doubles in a heartbeat, and Casey was warned. Time to have a serious, calm discussion with your groom. She shouldn't be your bridesmaid anymore. Well, what do you think? Should OP pay for the damaged dress or not? Please let us know.
Absolutely not. Just because Casey's an idiot doesn't mean you should have to pay for her stupidity.
Don't return a broken controller? Fine, I'll play you at your own game. So in the UK, we have a store called Game. I'll spare explaining what they sell. So anyway, I was looking through the secondhand cabinet and found an Xbox Elite controller. I liked the look of it. I ended up buying it and took it home. About an hour's drive away because I live in the middle of nowhere. Plugged it in, excited to make use of the extra features on my new controller, only to find the A button was mushed in and wouldn't register any input. Clearly broken, as soon as you tried to press it, it didn't click. Annoyed that nobody had checked this before putting it on sale, I traveled back the next day to return it for a working controller. I handed over the controller in the case it came with and explained the situation. Cashier: have you got the charging cable? This is where I messed up. I left the micro USB cable plugged into my PC. Me: no, very sorry, left it at home, but you can clearly tell this button is not clicking and it's broken. Cashier struggled to hide his grin and proceeded to tell me there was no way of testing the controller to see if it was faulty without the cable. Me: surely there's a micro USB cable lying around you can use. Cashier: I still can't return it without the cable. This I get, but I'm asking for a simple swap, like for like. Don't need the accessories, just the controller."
He was getting a mad control ego trip over condescendingly explaining the technicalities of store policy.
Annoyed with the fact it was going to be another 2-hour round trip, I just left, passing that same secondhand cabinet on my way out. That's when the light bulb moment hit. I looked at the Elite controller they had put in the cabinet to replace the one I bought the previous day, and looked back at old Smuggins back at the checkout, who was just elated he had won, or so he thought. I walked confidently back to the checkout, waited in line, and got to the smirking cashier, who now had a confused, slightly worried look on his face. Me. "I'd like to buy one Xbox Elite controller from your secondhand cabinet, please," I said in my most polite voice, as if it was the first time meeting cashier. Looking very confused and puzzled, he went and fetched it for me. I paid for my controller, cable and all, and marched out of the store. A little cable swap later, and I walked immediately back into the store. This is where cashier and I locked eye contact from across the store. His face was even more puzzled than before. I got to the front of the line and was served by the manager as cashier was busy with another customer. Me. "I bought this controller off you yesterday, and as you can see, the A button is smashed in and broken." This is where the penny dropped for cashier, and he figured out what I was up to. After handling the controller, the manager confirmed that, "Yes, it is. Very sorry about that, sir. We'll get that refunded for you, no problem. Do you have all the accessories it came with?" Me, locking eyes with cashier at the adjacent checkout, who was clearly listening and trying to involve himself in the transaction. "As a matter of fact, I do. Charging cable and all." At this point, cashier was spitting feathers, trying to interject and exclaim I had just swapped out the cable 30 seconds prior, but was too busy with the customer who was asking questions about something. Manager. "Do you want the money going back onto the card or paid initially?" Me. "Yes, please, but don't you need to check to see if it's faulty by plugging it in first?" Still holding eye contact with cashier. Manager. "No, that's not necessary. The A button is clearly broken." As cashier got redder in the face, my grin widened until I looked like a Cheshire cat. I thanked the manager for his help and gave a nod to cashier and left with my head held high and my new working controller. To some, this isn't anything to write home about, but for me it was extremely satisfying to see cashier's face at the end of the ordeal. Landlord tried to exploit me for free labor. I'm renting a little house out past the suburbs of the city I'm currently working in. It's a little old and the appliances are a bit dated, but it was much cheaper than a 2-bedroom apartment downtown, and I move around every couple of years for work. My landlord lives out of state and doesn't have anyone local, so for the past year and a half I haven't talked to anyone. Just pay my rent on time and keep doing my thing. About 4 months ago, plumbing issues started popping up, and 2 major appliances decided to give up the ghost. I notified my landlord via email and written letter. I rent a lot and have learned to abide by the exact wording in a lease. After several follow-up emails and phone calls, a local handyman showed up to look at everything and provide a quote. After receiving the quote for parts plus labor, the landlord told me flat out that they will not be paying for the repairs. They said that since I'm an engineer, they would allow me to purchase parts, install them, and then deduct the cost of the repairs from my rent payment. They said it was either this or learn to make do. I was not super thrilled at this response. I replied back to them saying if they were willing to deduct my time and the cost of parts from my rent, that I would get started immediately. Thank you very much. They were thrilled to hear it and asked me to send receipts for their records when everything is finished. Great. Now to put together all the pieces and get to work. The first step was to file for an LLC with my current state. Next, I set up some cameras and borrowed a GoPro from one of my hiking mates. I was able to document all the repair processes, from me watching YouTube videos of how to do things to me making multiple runs to the parts store and get that piece I didn't know I needed. Here's the kicker. At my day job, I make over $50 an hour. That is what my time is valued at. The final bill for everything has worked out to be about 12% higher than the quoted cost, and the landlord is very upset. But my lawyer added to the email chain has kept them very civil. I don't care that you're a diamond member. We've all gotten the calls from the top-tier, ultra-shiny rewards members where they're demanding some sort of free thing. We've all had them in our faces. However, since I got a fancy new title and a fun new name plaque for the manager on duty sign, I've been unable to care about them. A little backstory is that I'm the highest manager on property. As my GM had a medical issue and will be out on temporary disability until September, I've been running the hotel since March with very little training on admin stuff, working the front desk, helping housekeeping, and even working with maintenance. We occasionally, like once a month, have a task force GM come in to help, but he doesn't know our PMS. With all that said, I have very little time or patience for the entitled rantings of idiots. I just got a call about a reservation for early August. The first thing this jerk says to me is, "I'm a Diamond member." He then goes on to ask me if we have discounted tickets to local theme parks. I say no and explain that those kinds of tickets are usually given to the hotels that are literally right beside said theme park. He starts yelling,
"If you have the tickets, you have to give them to me. You can't hold them."
I politely tell him again that we don't have any and haven't had them in the 4 years I've been here. He calms down and then asks the question I hate more than anything.
"Do you have any free upgrades for Diamond members? Like, if I wanted to check in at 8 to go to the theme park, would it be for free?"
I tell him, "No, sir. Early check-in is subject to availability, and generally before noon, it's a $50 fee. Since you're a Diamond member, I would let you check in at 10 a.m. for free." This set him off. He begins screaming into the phone that,
"This is BS, and no other hotel has ever made me pay for an early check-in. I'm going to report you to corporate, and since I'm a Diamond member, you're going to lose your job."
When he stops to take a breath, I say, "I don't care that you're a Diamond member," and hang up. I can't stand these entitled jerks anymore. I'm not taking their mistreatment and not letting my staff take it either. I heard someone yelling at my front desk and came out of my office and told her to go chill in the back for a second. I threatened to kick him out if he talked to my staff like that anymore. Where did my patience go? My favorite response to Diamond members when they threatened to get corporate to fire me was, "Well, sir, this is a franchised hotel, not a corporate-owned hotel. Corporate has no input on my employment status here, and even if they ask my boss, our owners won't agree to fire me. Did you need me to give you corporate's number, or do you have it already?" My response is usually, "Okay," which seems to make them even more mad. Younger me would have been in the back shaking and trying not to cry because I was not aware of the power balance. Older me understands these customers have no say in my employment if I'm doing my job. And that's always when I have my job threatened by them because I'm following policy and not breaking it for them. So please, do call and let them know that I'm doing my job. When I became a manager, I loved getting these complaints. I would print out the corporate complaints and congratulate the employee for sticking to policy. And my favorite was the one time someone came to complain in person about the employee not breaking policy. The look on her face when I said, somewhere along the lines of, "Thank you for bringing to my attention that my employees are enforcing the company policy. It's good to know they are following their training." I got my stepsister Karen kicked out of school. I'm 15, female, and my stepsister is 17. We attend the same private high school. I'm in my second year. I skipped a grade, and she is in her first year. She's been held back for 2. Our school is very demanding. Last year, she was almost expelled for her low performance. She even had a meeting with the principal and teachers to decide if she would stay. I was chosen by our parents to vouch for her, but I refused to because I have a good reputation and I didn't want to lie to my teachers. She did face consequences for her low performance, but was given a second chance. This year, she was acting the exact same as last year. All the time, just on her phone and not even focusing in class. But last month, to everyone's surprise, she got an almost perfect grade on a paper. We were all happy for her, and Stepmom even printed out her paper and put it on the fridge. I was a bit surprised by the topic she chose because it was the same topic I chose last year. I was curious and decided to read her paper during breakfast. It gave me an odd feeling when I was reading it. I get this weird feeling when I read something that I've already read before. But I had a lot on my plate already, and I just let it go. That same week, she got another good grade, but this time it was different. This story was about one of my personal favorite memories, and this time I recognized it immediately, so I confronted her right away. At first, she denied it, but I brought my notebook and showed her the exact same text. She admitted to it, but Stepmom defended her, trying to say that I was lying. She got those grades because she had a problem with her notebook and I had lent her mine. Even my father was against me. They didn't punish her and I was forbidden to report her. I was mad and I stopped speaking to them. A week later, I needed to use the sharing tool in my computer and realized she was using that to steal my work. At first, I just turned it off, but then I decided to make her get caught. I took the next 5 tasks that were her next ones and edited them. I took off citations, put a few insults here and there, put pure plagiarism, and turned sharing on again. Well, she got caught, and our parents and her had to attend an emergency meeting. She ended up confessing and lied, telling them that I gave her my old work. I told them the truth, and they trusted me because I have a good reputation. She was expelled in the act. She's blaming me for everything. Our parents are furious with me, especially because it will be hard to find a new school for her now, and her record of failing 2 years plus an expulsion will do no good for her. I was fine with my conscience, but my favorite aunt told me I was wrong and I should have just denied her access to my work, and it wasn't right to do this to family. So, people of the internet, am I the jerk? Insane Karen parks in front of a train. This isn't my story. My dad is friends with a train engineer, and he would always be super nice to me and my family, and he told us this insane, crazy story. Info you will need to know. So this story is about a train engineer, and as everyone knows, trains can't stop on a dime. But the important info you will need to know is about wheel slips. Sometimes trains can have a failed start or stop and slide across the track because the wheels lose traction. If a train goes into a wheel slip while stopping, it's extremely difficult to stop. Wheel slips are usually caused by weight distribution or not being able to gain traction. If a train has too much weight, it can go into a wheel slip easily. So the people who load the train need to make sure that it's just the right amount of weight distribution. On to the story. So let's call my dad's friend Tom. Tom was on his normal route, and in the conductor's seat is someone we will call Bill. Tom was going around 70 miles per hour and was about to come up on a crossing. In the distance, you could see a car on the crossing. He thought that the arms hadn't gone down yet, and cars were still crossing, as it was still a ways away. As he got closer, he noticed a car was parked on the crossing, and a woman and her kid were standing right beside it on the tracks, holding up a sign that Tom couldn't read. But he immediately knew this was bad. He slammed on the emergency brakes and blew the horn as loud as he could to try and warn the woman. As he got closer and closer, she wouldn't budge. But then the train went into an unexpected wheel slip. I'll explain why after. And now they were sliding at a high velocity and heading straight towards the mom and presumably her son. Bill and Tom were panicking, letting trains nearby know what was going on. People who saw the occasion were yelling at the woman and her kid, and as they were approaching her, people realized she wasn't going to budge due to what her sign stated. People ran and came and pushed her out of the way. Then a few moments later, Tom and Bill slammed into the car, and since they were in a wheel slip, they couldn't slow down. Luckily, after a bit, Bill and Tom managed to gain traction again and stopped 2.5 miles later. Bill and Tom were really scared about what had happened, and despite their protocol, they jumped out of the engine and ran to see if her and her kid were okay. Luckily, they knew they would be there because the police would need to ask questions. After apparently, according to Tom, what seemed like forever, they finally made it back to the crossing. They found the mom and her kid, and she wasn't there because she was stuck, she was protesting. The entitled mom proceeded to have a conversation like this.
Finally, now I want you to meet my son. He wants a ride in your train.
Tom, what? Entitled kid,
I want to be a train driver. Can I go pull the horn?
Tom, sorry kid, no, we can't allow that.
Let him do it. He's just curious. Besides, you owe us one since you attempted to hurt us.
Tom, why's that? Before entitled mom could proceed to yell at Tom, Bill found the sign and told Tom to read what it said. The sign stated, "Stop crashing into cars because you're too lazy to stop and enjoy the fun of demolition. Embrace the new generation." Tom, what are you trying to say? Entitled mom,
The whole thing about trains can't stop on a dime is an old wives' tale. Admit it, you don't stop because you enjoy crashing into cars.
Tom, what? No, we don't stop because we can't stop. The wait.
I've heard it all before, and I'm tired of being lied to.
Tom, okay, well, it's not a lie. Besides, a crash like this creates a huge inconvenience for our schedule, and we have to try to work around this. We don't do it for fun. What do you mean by embrace the new generation? Karen,
I've tried to stop so many trains time and time before because my boy wants to be able to blow the horn and see what the inside looks like. He wants to be a train driver. He wants to be a train driver when he grows up too. You guys are so lazy, you just wave. Too selfish to let the new generation be excited to be a train driver. You guys are so selfish.
Tom, ma'am, if we could, we would. I wouldn't have minded, but you must understand that everyone is on a tight schedule. Stopping can put a lot of people in danger, because if we aren't in a siding at a specific time, it can delay schedules, and trains can accidentally be led onto the line you're on and can cause a head-on collision.
Oh, shut up. You guys aren't on a tight schedule. I've been waiting here almost all day, and it took forever to see a train. We got so bored, and we needed to find things to do. You know how many people I had to tell off? I got so many questions about why I was there. I said I was just putting coins on the track. Each time someone came by, I had to look busy. We put a lot of coins on there. Oh, I need to check them and go see how they turned out.
Tom's and Bill's faces grew red with anger. Tom,
You did what? You did what?
Karen,
Me and my son put coins on the track. Is there a problem?
Tom, how many?
I lost count. We put so many on.
Tom was furious because he realized why he went into the unexpected wheel slip. There were so many coins, and he was traveling so fast that the train lost traction and they went into the wheel slip that put many in danger. Tom screamed and yelled at the woman and asked how she could be so stupid. Tom told the officers what had happened, and she was charged for trespassing, and she committed a felony by making her car get hit on purpose. So Karen had a lot of bills to pay and spent just a small time in the slammer, and her entitled kid didn't get what he wanted. Everybody was okay, but man, this story when Tom told my family made us drop our jaws, and I hope it did the same for you. Have you ever been on a train? And if so, did you like it? Please let us know.
I went on a train in the mountains of California once. I was really disappointed at how slow it went.
Am I the jerk for firing my vet after the way the nurse spoke to me? I, 29 female, pay $35 per month for an insurance plan for my cat, who's 2 female. This includes a basic checkup every 6 months. Her appointment was scheduled for today at 12 p.m. While I was waiting to check her in, it was me, one guy in front of me, and the girl at the front desk. A nurse came out from the back and told the girl at the front desk, "Hey, just a heads up. Everybody went on their lunch break, just so you know." My cat has anxiety, so when I booked her appointment, they assured me that she'd be in and out. So I said, if no one is here, should I wait to come back later to drop my cat off? The nurse shot daggers at me and said bluntly, "This conversation doesn't concern you." I was kind of in shock because I didn't think I'd asked anything too crazy. I said, "I'm just confused, since I don't want to drop her off if she's just going to sit in a room." The nurse said, "We were having a separate conversation. She'll be fine." I have pretty bad anxiety myself and wasn't here to argue, just to advocate for my cat. So I meekly said, "Okay," and I figured that was that. Well, this nurse gives me an up-down look, turns around and walks into the back. The door hasn't even swung shut yet, and I could hear her trashing me to her other nurses. She's laughing and saying, "You guys, there's this crazy lady at the front with her cat," and then the door swung closed. This is where I might be the jerk, because I shut down and told the girl checking me in I'm not letting my cat go back there, unless that person is not in the room, or if I can go back there with my cat. If she talks to me like that, how am I supposed to trust her to give the best care for my cat, who can't speak up for herself? I also said I wanted to make a complaint. I asked for a business card for a manager. The front desk girl gave me a card and I called the number. The front desk rang. She put it on hold and looked sheepish. I asked if this was the number for the manager or for the store. She admitted it was for the store. At this point, my cat is howling in her carrier. We had driven all this way and she was so shaken up, so sunken cost fallacy. I said I'd stay for the appointment if I could come in the room with her and make sure she was safe. The front desk girl finally admitted, "Well, no one is here. They're at lunch, so it would be for at least an hour." So the nurse had been lying about my cat being taken care of all along. I didn't want to argue anymore, so I said I wanted to reschedule for a time I could be in the room. She booked me for next week. Afterwards, I called my mom, and she told me I definitely shouldn't go back, but I also shouldn't have threatened to make a complaint to the manager and be a Karen. So I'm planning to call back this week and cancel my appointment and my insurance and take my business elsewhere. I think I was sticking up for my baby, but I could just be a crazy cat lady causing issues when I could have just left. So, am I the jerk? Listen to your mom about not going back. But in addition to making a complaint, also write a review. Let other people know about their supposed business model of laughing and lying to their customers. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. The nurse said that comment knowing you would still be able to hear her, so that's a very weird bullying tactic. Then the front desk nurse gave you the wrong number purposefully to stop your complaint. Then you found out you were justified in your concerns because it would in fact be a long wait for your cat by themselves because everyone was on lunch. Completely, they're the jerks in this situation. Also, why would they have an appointment at 12 p.m. when the whole staff goes to lunch? This is so bizarre. Not the jerk. I would never go back there either. They dropped the ball several times. 1. Agreeing to give your cat a quick appointment and not following through. 2. Speaking rudely to you when you express your concerns. And 3. Giving you the wrong number to make a complaint. Plus, I've never heard of a store or service that lets all the workers take a break for an hour at the same time without closing. I'd switch vets for that reason alone. Like, go ahead and shut down the store for an hour, but don't book appointments during your lunch break. This is ridiculous, and I can't believe the vet spoke so rudely to your very reasonable question, and the audacity to mock you for it. They are major jerks. Finally, I have a concern about what your mom said. I really hate that lately anyone who complains about anything is called a Karen. You are not a Karen. A Karen is someone who complains and yells at workers over petty things out of their control, like yelling at cashiers for not accepting an expired coupon. You wanted to talk to a manager to complain about one of their workers treating a customer very rudely and then mocking them. That's completely justified. So please switch vets and don't think of yourself as a crazy cat lady. If anything, you are kinder than you should have been. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the vet? Please let us know.
I hope OP leaves as many reviews as they can. With staff that rude, no one should be going there.
Told to change one student's grade, so I changed them all. I moved to a new state to take a high school teaching job in a rural town. I liked my fellow teachers and almost all of my students, but this was a small town with the usual assortment of outsized attitudes. One student was particularly lazy. Her parents both worked in the small school district, admin at the high school, teacher at the middle school. She rarely turned anything in on time, and what was turned in was generally rushed or incomplete, as if she had gotten the instructions secondhand. Somehow, though, she had straight A's in all of her classes. I quickly figured out why. When she turned in another late, incomplete assignment, and I very generously gave her a D, her overall grade in class dropped to a B. I was called in the next day to a meeting with the principal and both of her parents, who immediately complained I was being unfair and capricious with my grades. They accused me of not giving students the instructions, so I showed them the instruction paper which I passed out and went over in class. They accused me of not giving her specifically a copy, but I remember handing it to her and I told them why. She was making out with her boyfriend when I was trying to go over the instructions. They didn't like hearing that part. They accused me of not being clear with my deadline, but it was the second line of the directions. They accused me of not fairly grading her work, but when I showed them her work, they clearly hadn't seen it before and wondered whether I had gotten assignments mixed up before I showed them her name on it. The principal asked me to change the grade in the grade book. I asked about whether she'd have to redo the assignment first, but that was declined by her parents. I understand why my principal caved. It wasn't worth trying to fight two employees in a small, rural district already struggling to recruit people. So I went back to my classroom and changed every student's grade to a 100 in the grade book. No special treatment. Even the ones who hadn't turned in a single thing got a perfect score. The fallout. Many students asked me why their grade changed, but I never addressed it. I would just brush them off by saying not to worry about it, though clearly rumors were spreading like wildfire in the small school, because even the secretary and the principal asked me about it later on. I only said that, yes, I changed her grade. The principal looked like he wanted to ask me about why I changed all of the grades, but he just shrugged and walked away. He never interfered in my gradebook after that. The student's parents transferred her out of my class, and her boyfriend also transferred a day later. No more PDA in my class, finally, so no complaints. Am I the jerk for buying a luxury watch instead of paying my fiance's parents back? I, 31 male, am in a relationship with a woman, Jen, who's 26. Jen and I have dated for 2 years now, and we got engaged 3 months ago. Neither Jen nor I are good with finances. In our city, this can't really be helped, seeing as everything is egregiously overpriced. But it is what it is, and we do the best we can. About a month ago, Jen and I decided to talk about our finances and savings, and so I brought up my online banking account to show her. In my checking account, I had a few $1,000s, but in my savings account, I had a bit over $8,000. Jen got super excited upon seeing that figure, saying we could use it to travel. I explained to Jen that this money was going towards a watch I wanted to buy. She responded with, and I quote, "Forget that," saying that she wanted to go to Europe with me. I immediately popped that balloon, as this was the result of me saving $150 to $250 a month for years. I was extremely clear. Europe was not going to happen. Jen got a bit upset, but finally I got her to drop the issue. About a week later, Jen came to me and said that I needed to come with her to a travel agent because she had made a down payment for a package deal to France. Having seen her finances, I knew that Jen didn't have the money. When I asked where she had come up with it, she said she borrowed it from her parents with the promise that she'd pay them back in about a week. Again, I was confused, but she said that the money I had in my account was more than enough to pay them back, and that instead of getting a stupid overpriced watch, I should make memories with her. I told her that she needed to go to the agency and beg for her money back, but she said it was too late. A few minutes later, I got in my car, drove to the watch store, and told the guy I talked to about half a dozen times about the watch that I was ready to buy. I paid in cash and came home. Then I showed Jen my watch and said, "That savings account now has a few $100 in it. Get your money back." She shrieked at me about it, and I told her that she had to go beg, cry, and get on her knees at the agency if that's what it took. Miraculously, she pulled it off and paid her parents back in full. But now she's incredibly angry and keeps telling me that it's my turn to go beg for my money back. Her parents are completely on her side and keep saying that going into a lifetime commitment, I don't need a luxury watch. Not sure about this one. I think I might have jumped the gun on that purchase, but I had already had my mind made up for years. Edit. I didn't think this was a financial advice board. I will include the following information because people here are incessantly focusing on how I spent my money. 1. I've maxed out my 401k every year since I was 23. In terms of retirement, my 20s were spent saving way more than the average American. 2. I spent the majority of my 20s also financially supporting my mentally ill sister. I no longer have to support her, and therefore I began dating Jen with marriage in mind. My question was about whether stranding Jen after her impulsive decision like that was a jerk move. It wasn't about whether I should keep more money in my savings account. If anyone here who has also maxed out their 401k throughout their 20s while supporting a family member would like to chime in, go ahead, but I don't really care. You say neither you nor your fiance are good with money and blame it on the high cost of living in your city. Well, that's not the reason you guys aren't good with money. You're not good with money because you impulse spend, fiance on the vacation, or you save for stupid things, you and the $8,000 watch. You didn't borrow the money from her parents, so you're not the jerk. That's all on her. But man, you need to grow up and treat your finances more maturely. Facts. OP is not the jerk for not paying her parents back, but you may want to call off the engagement. She has already showed you exactly who she is. Believe her. She wanted to go on an extravagant vacation with your money. Now let's address this lavish purchase. You really need to return it. Can you live in it? Can you drive around in it? Can you retire with it? How exactly does it serve you? That money could have been placed in a high-yield account, retirement fund, or you could have continued to save and purchase an apartment or home. That watch was a vanity purchase. You could have gotten a quality timepiece for $200 to $500 and saved the rest for your future. Lose the fiance, return the watch, take a financial literacy course, plan for your future one smart move at a time. OP already said he's maxed out his 401k every year since he was 23 years old. So he's not in a bad financial situation when it comes to retirement. He's totally allowed to make a few lavish purchases when he's saved money specifically for that reason without impacting his future. Sure, it's good to have an emergency savings fund, but we don't know details about if he even has one. And if he doesn't, he can start building one now. It's never too late to save. Everyone sucks here. Your girlfriend sucks for trying to spend your money for you without your agreement. You suck at spending that much money on a watch when you have no other savings and no other property. You're 31, OP. When are you going to start saving for retirement or a house? Just saying, we suck at finances, we live in an expensive city, doesn't work anymore. You're both adults, and you'll both suffer if you don't start saving for important things now. If you're bad at finances, get good. Take some classes, hire a financial advisor. Don't waste your money on stupid crap. Edit. After reading OP's edit, I still think he's a jerk. OP, you're the jerk for running out and spending the money just to say, forget you, to your girlfriend. Wasn't it enough that she was wrong and you didn't give her your money? You weren't going to buy the watch at that very moment before, so why did you have to do it now? To prove something? What were you proving? That you're in control of your own money? That's something a teenager does, not a grown man who is in control of his own money. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his fiancé? Please let us know.
Plot twist. It was an investment watch that will 10x in value over the next few years.
Don't want to pay my asking price? Okay. Years ago, I sold my first motorcycle. It was a good bike, but it was my first motorcycle. I had laid it down a couple of times doing stupid stuff, so it wasn't perfect. I took good care of it though, and always replaced damaged or scratched things because I didn't want it to look bad. Well, except for the left side of the engine. The sides of most motorcycle engines will often make contact with the ground and get scratched up if the bike slides on inside, which mine did on several occasions. I had replaced the stator cover before and didn't want to go through that again, even though it's only about a $120 part. Plus, the scrapes on the stator cover weren't that bad and I could live with them. So I list my bike for sale, show it to a few people, and along comes a dad with his young adult son. Now, the dad, being an older and wiser rider, riding for as many years as the moon has orbited planet Earth, knew he had the better end of the bargain. He was there looking at my first bike that had been gently crashed before, which I was fully upfront about. Easy bargain, right? I was pretty firm on my asking price for one simple reason. I was going to throw in all the brand new parts, accessories, and maintenance items I had accumulated for this bike. A couple of oil filters, case of oil, brake pads, and new stator cover, and even an inoperable engine, which still had many, many good parts on it. But if and only if they had paid my asking price. This was easily over $300 in parts, excluding the engine. The dad of the buyer played the bad cop in this scenario, pointing out things that he thought could give him some bargaining power, and then of course made a lower offer. I entertained the offer, but at the same time informed them of my conditions for getting the spare parts.
We don't need the spare parts.
Okay, I counteroffered, explaining that my asking price was already very competitive given the condition of my bike. We settled on $100 less than my asking price, so they left with only the bike and none of the parts. A few days go by, and the buyer reaches back out to me to ask if they can come by to pick up the stator cover for free to replace the scratched one that was on the bike. I replied with, "Sorry, I'm going to sell it to make up for the discount I gave you on the motorcycle." A replacement stator cover costs more than the $100 they saved on the purchase, but if they paid me that $100, they would have gotten the cover, along with supplies for the first oil change, around $80, brake pads, about $75, sprockets, equal to $90, plus a whole nother engine to tinker around with. The engine had catastrophically failed, so it wasn't worth much, but the parts on it are still expensive to buy new. Am I the jerk for offering a homeless person a loaf of bread? Today, I, 21 female, went to Target to get some groceries and saw a homeless person asking people, including me, for something to eat. I normally get super paranoid about safety, living in the city, and don't ever talk to someone I don't know. But today, I bought a loaf of bread and offered it to the person on the way out. Note, I didn't say a single word, but just physically held out the bread to offer if they wanted it. The person got super rude and condescending, saying what on earth would they eat it with, and then proceeded to call me stupid while making hand gestures. What struck me the most was that he was awfully rude to me while he would act in an appeasing way to other people passing by, even when they would just ignore him and move on. I don't know, I feel like it's a sign that the one time I go out of my comfort zone to help someone, it ended up like this. But to double check, did I do something wrong in any way? Edit. People are getting really offended that I offered this person a loaf of bread, as if I treated them like a duck or a dog. But I only offered them that because whenever I go hungry or am without money in between paychecks, I eat plain bread all the time. I don't mind being told I'm the jerk, but wouldn't like my intentions to be misinterpreted. I know I'm probably going to get downvoted for this, but soft, you're the jerk. What yourself and a lot of commenters lack, and frankly what the world lacks, is a realistic perspective of what being homeless is like in the first world nations, as well as all the things being homeless lacks. That bread is going to mold quickly without proper storage. A homeless person doesn't have the resources to properly store bread. This will be even worse now due to the heat wave that's been encompassing practically the entirety of the northern hemisphere. The bread will mold significantly faster. Junk food is better, and before you clutch your pearls about, "Oh, that's not healthy though," most healthy foods require a level of storage and prep homeless people do not have accessible to them. Junk food has preservatives that ensures it lasts. A bag of Doritos is going to last longer and provide more calorie intake than the bread will. Similarly, regarding comments about homelessness equaling hunger and that you'd rather give food than money, this is highly unrealistic. Not all homeless people are hungry, especially in larger cities. Food is a lot easier to come by, and there are plenty of organizations dedicated to feeding people. What a lot of organizations that serve homeless people are looking for are hygiene items and clothing. A large portion of homeless people also live in their cars and need money to pay for their cars, both in bills and gas. In some cities, homeless people in vehicles make up almost half the homeless population. Money is needed to pay for phones as well. Phones which are needed not only to keep in contact with friends and family, but are necessary to getting a job in our current world. Money is also needed to buy hygiene products and clothes. Money can also be used, and often is, for getting motels. Homeless shelters have limited space and are not always accessible. It's awesome you want to give to the homeless, more people should. However, it's important to keep in mind that they are ultimately homeless and don't have the resources to keep food properly stored. If you're going to give, and you certainly don't have to, try and think from the perspective of what a homeless person not only needs, but can store. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for firing an employee for stealing leftovers? My 27 female husband's of 3 years father is an entrepreneur who, among his businesses and numerous industries, has several sandwich shops spread out throughout 2 states. Last year, my husband and his dad opened a new location, and he and I were put in charge of being the ultimate decision makers regarding day-to-day operations of that location. My husband is the one with an MBA, and he has his hands full managing properties that his dad owns, so I've been the one who pays the most attention to details. While I trust the manager we hired, I sometimes go through the security camera footage of the store for extra assurance purposes. My husband never has the time to do so, but I can easily do so. Our shop is not open on Sundays, so inventory that we have has to be thrown out because it cannot be served on Monday. The other day, I realized that on one Saturday night, an employee who regularly closed was throwing out meats but would shove bread into a bag and presumably take it home. Another employee saw this happen and never reported it. I ended up confronting the other employee first, who has been there longer. She admitted it was true, but that she thought because it was peanuts compared to the bread and meats being thrown out, that this was somebody just trying to feed themselves. I confronted the employee who did it, and she said she was sorry, but she was a single mom, and that she thought it was going in the trash anyway. She also said that she wasn't making enough to not qualify for food stamps, but that it was still not enough with a growing kid and she often had to skip meals. I left that meeting angry that the employee didn't seem to understand she was essentially stealing. I called the manager and said that he should have made it clear that stealing was unacceptable and to fire her. He seemed dismayed and said that we should give her a warning and give her a chance to not do it again. But I was honestly done with it because we pay well for what she does and she cannot say her issues entitled her to get away with this. Am I the jerk? Be prepared for this to go public. Do you realize the headlines your restaurant is about to get? Local manager fires single mother for taking home unsellable bread, which would otherwise be thrown out because she can't afford to feed her kids on her pay. You're also about to lose the rest of your staff as well. I wouldn't be surprised if you have a mass walk-off. Hope your husband and father-in-law fire you for your cruelty and completely bad decision-making that's going to cause a whole lot of bad press and lost business. So let me get this straight. You'd rather throw away food than let someone eat it? You're the jerk for that alone. But also, define pay well. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is the employee? Please let us know.
Bruh, I just don't know how some people get so evil.
Karen destroyed my fish tank, so I fired her. I've had my cleaning service for roughly 3 years as my husband and I routinely work 12 plus hours a day and are often sent away as well. Since the beginning, I've had a strict rule of do not clean the living room ever. This is due to me keeping a very elaborate aquarium, 1,300-gallon reef, and cleaning products used near it can kill my fish. Because of this, I'm the only one who cleans the living room. A few days ago, I noticed a few of my fish seemed to be breathing heavily and had lost a lot of coral that was closed up. This is a very well-established tank, and it's been running for the last 7 years, so I immediately knew that something was wrong. Most of my fish are just as old as the tank, and I've had very little sickness happen at all. Fortunately, my setup allows me to do massive water changes, and I was up until 8 a.m. changing probably 80% of the water. Despite my best efforts, I lost a lot of fish. Seahorses had their own section of the tank, rays, various tangs, but the losses that hit me the hardest were my Moorish idols and a 6-foot tessellata moray. My entire tank was set up for the idols specifically. I spent over a year preparing it before I even got them. My moray, Bill, I'd had since he was under a foot long. I hand-fed him all of his meals. While I was trying to figure out what could have possibly caused my tank to crash, I noticed that the living room was clean, spotless even, and I knew what had happened. Chemicals got in the water and killed almost everything. I immediately called my cleaning lady and I lost it, telling her that she had one thing to remember, one, and it shouldn't have been possible to forget, seeing as the reason took up almost an entire wall of my house. She told me she had hired a new girl and must have forgotten to explain to her that she wasn't supposed to clean the living room and continued to ask if she had done a good job. I replied that she had done such a good job cleaning, she cleaned out my tank's inhabitants and told her that she wouldn't be returning to my home and she wouldn't be paid for the week. She didn't take that very well and started threatening to bring me to small claims court because the job was still done and done well, apparently. I basically told her to kick dirt, and she's lucky I'm only firing her and not suing her due to the thousands of dollars I'd lost due to her mistake. Everyone keeps telling me they're only fish, just buy more, or she was just doing her job. I'm sure the poor girl feels horrible enough. Maybe I'm just letting my anger and upset cloud my judgment, and I'm being unreasonably harsh. But I loved those fish. They weren't just fish to me, and I loved them all very much. So please, am I the jerk for firing my cleaning lady for cleaning? New neighbor demands I stop fishing because it's bad for the environment. I, 25 male, live in my family's cottage, which I was given ownership of. The cottage itself is a waterfront property facing a medium-sized lake. My family has been living here for generations, as my great-grandfather originally bought it before passing it down, eventually leading to me. My neighbors are a different story, as many of the people I have known since childhood have moved out. The houses that my neighbors once had have been torn down and replaced with designer-style homes. With the construction of these homes come new neighbors and an HOA, of which I am not a member of. My problem started with my next-door neighbor, Sophie. She's in her 50s or 60s, overfishing. One day, after doing some canoe fishing, I was approached by Sophie on my beach. She started asking if it was legal to fish on the lake, to which I said it was, as long as you paid the $25 per year license. After that, I said that I had to go, as I had caught some fish and I wanted to start processing them for dinner as it was getting late. After our conversation, I did not hear from her for over 2 weeks. My encounter with her this time was not in person, but through a letter. In this letter, she wrote about how dangerous fishing is to the environment and why I should stop. In response, I chose to simply chuck it in my recycling bin and ignore her as it wasn't worth my time. My most recent encounter with her was 2 days ago, while I had some friends over. It was in the afternoon when I had ran back into the house for some more beers, along with one of my friends. While grabbing the drinks, we heard a knock at the door. When I answered the door, it was Sophie, and she had another letter. Before handing the letter over, she said that she had tried to be diplomatic, and now she has had enough and has a letter from the HOA. Admittedly, I was a bit tipsy at the time, and in response, I laughed and called her stupid for believing the HOA can do anything before closing the door on her. After sobering up, I felt conflicted. On one hand, I felt that I was justified in my actions because my fishing is none of her business. On the other hand, I feel that I could have dealt with her in a more tactful way. Am I the jerk? It's kind of ironic, as an individual fishing for their own food in a canoe is about as sustainable as it can get. Not the jerk. That is kind of blowing my mind. Oh, sorry, Sophie. Let me just jump in my car, drive to the store, and buy some fish that was shipped in from somewhere else instead. Is that better? Some states even have harassment laws protecting hunters and anglers from this type of behavior. You could potentially hold her for civil liability if the behavior continues. Not the jerk. She's bordering on harassment. Not only that, I'm sure she's lying, as the HOA knows you're not a member, which would mean that they can't do anything. Not only that, an HOA can't control how often and where you fish. This woman is the reason a vast majority of Americans refuse to live in an area with an HOA. Speaking of fishing, have you ever gone fishing? And if so, have you caught anything? Please let us know.
Oh, I love going fishing, but I love eating the fish even more.
Am I the jerk for getting an entire table for myself after my husband and his mom didn't save me a seat? I'll start this off by saying that I, female 32, have been with my husband Bob, male 39, for 3 years, married for 1. His mom has a habit of keeping me out of most of their functions with the excuse of,
"You work too much."
not true, because sometimes I do make myself available, but yet find myself excluded. Last week, his mom invited us for a celebratory dinner at the restaurant after she completed her recovery. I had something to do on that day, but I let her and everyone else know that I'd be there at 8 p.m. Bob obviously knew I was coming. Thing is, when I arrived to the restaurant, I saw that the table was full. All chairs had been taken, and I just stood there with a complete puzzlement while Bob and his mom just stared at me. His mom then told me there was no place left for me, and that I could either have Bob get up and take his seat or go home. I was so upset, but instead of going home, I just went and took an entire table for myself. Bob and his mom watched with their eyes popping out of their heads like they saw something shocking. Not gonna lie, I did get weird looks from the guests, but so did Bob and his mom. It was awkward in all honesty. I had my dinner, dessert, then went home. I saw Bob and his mom staring grudgingly while I was making my way out. He got home an hour later and was yelling at me, saying that I embarrassed his mom in front of her guests. I yelled, asking what was I supposed to do after I got denied a seat, and he told me that it wasn't his nor his mom's fault guests arrived before me and took all the available chairs. I told him he could have saved me a chair. He said that I could have just left instead and reminded me that I was a guest and that I shouldn't expect this level of entitlement to be accepted. He then went on about how I ruined the entire dinner for him and his mom with what I did, and he's been pouting about it for days now. I don't get it. I really don't. Was my expectation really that entitled? I mean, as his wife, he should have saved me a seat, but clearly I'm missing something here. Not the jerk. OP, is this level of disrespect really what you want for the next 20 years? Not the jerk. They clearly excluded you and didn't help you get accommodated. This isn't some stranger, this is your husband, who had you eat dinner alone and then blamed you for what he did. Not the jerk. You are married to someone who values his relationship with his mother above you. He cares about how you made them look instead of how they made themselves look after denying you a seat. Here's what you do. 1. File for separation so you can start the divorce proceedings. 2. When he asks why you are going this route, tell him, "I'm choosing to walk away because I deserve better than the crumbs you leave thrown to the floor behind you. While I love and value you, I am not loved or valued by you because that spot belongs to your mother. There have been too many instances in our relationship where you have proven your mother is your priority regarding common decency, respect, or love. Until you open your eyes and see your mother's manipulations for what they are, you will be alone." 3. Start therapy for yourself so you can begin to move on. You're only 32. You shouldn't have to waste your love on someone who doesn't want it. Give it to someone who will stand up, love, honor, treasure, and be faithful to you. There are men out there. Unfortunately, the one you chose is not it. If you want to make things work with him, therapy and boundaries must be set in place. If he allows those boundaries to be crossed too many times, you know you did what you could and walk away with a clear conscience. Good luck to you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her mother-in-law? Please let us know.
This is why you stay away from mommy's boys.
My sister-in-law keeps snooping in my bedroom, so I scared her with a cardboard cutout of The Rock. I'm 32, female. My sister-in-law, who's 43, is super nosy. It's come up before, but she's one of those people that will just keep denying something, no matter how much proof you have, and then get angry at you for not believing her. At my house, the guest bathroom is partially shared with the master bedroom. The toilet and sink are separate for guests, and then through a door, you can get to the shower, our closets, and another sink, then through an additional door is the bedroom, if that makes any sense. Basically, you can get into our bedroom through the bathroom without going through the main door. So when she comes over, she would sometimes take just a bit too long in the bathroom. During maybe the third or fourth time, I happened to be walking by the bathroom and heard 2 doors close. I asked her if she was looking for something in the bedroom and if I could help her find it. She replied with,
No, why would I go in your bedroom?
and then changed the subject. The next time she was going to come over, I set something small behind the bedroom door so I could see if it had been opened by the small item being pushed back. Later, I could see that it had been. So for me, confirming that she had been snooping again. I asked directly if she had been in our bedroom, and she said something like,
I don't care what's in your bedroom. Get over yourself.
So yesterday, sister-in-law and brother-in-law came over. But before that, I ordered a full-size cutout of Dwayne Johnson, which I placed in our bedroom facing the bathroom door. About an hour into the visit, she heads into the bathroom. Very shortly after, there's a scream, a thud, and a door slam. She came out, clearly angry. She'd been quite startled and slammed her upper arm into the door frame while turning away from the cutout. Brother-in-law made it worse by asking, "Well, why were you in their bedroom?" But she didn't answer and they left. She's posted on Facebook that she has a big bruise on her arm as a result of my nasty prank. People are saying she could have been hurt worse and that she's too old to be the victim of a childish prank. I feel badly that she was hurt. It wasn't my intention, but I might be the jerk because I still think it was hilarious. Not the jerk. It was hilarious. Hey, you had 2 break-ins to your bedroom, so you got The Rock to provide security. He caught the offender. End of problem. Not the jerk. And I'm just petty enough to reply on her post, "I'm so sorry that you were hurt and startled unintentionally. I didn't think to warn you about the cutout as I had it stored out of the way in my bedroom." Then let her friends put the pieces together. Not the jerk. But where's the "it's not a prank unless everyone is laughing" crew at? Most prank stories, you get all these losers on here saying that it's not a joke or a prank if someone gets upset. The truth is that there will always be someone who gets upset at the prank or joke. That's what makes it funny, you idiots. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or sister-in-law? Please let us know.
Why do some people love to sneak around their relatives' rooms? What do they think they're going to find?
The director of IT oversteps and misuses her power, ends up deleting our only copy of our computer image. This happened around 2010. I work in IT for a state agency. Since it's government, our leadership positions are mostly appointed by the governor rather than being promoted from within. As a result, we had a director of IT who knew nothing about IT. We'll call her Karen. Karen came from a completely different unit, and due to a union dispute over a hostile work environment, she was reassigned to our unit rather than fired. This frequently happens with appointees. They do not like to fire them because it makes the governor look bad. Unsurprisingly, the unit began going downhill after she took over because she was extremely emotional and tried to micromanage everything. My normal job duties involve computer repair and networking, covering multiple offices. I volunteered to help Central Office create our computer software image, naively thinking it would help me get promoted. But all in all, it was just tedious and was starting to cause me to fall behind in my normal duties. I had been working on the image for about 6 months, updating it when needed. For those who aren't IT savvy, an image is a snapshot of the computer hard drive, fully loaded with all of the drivers and software already installed. To do this manually would take 4 to 5 hours on every computer, whereas using an image would only take about 40 minutes. We work very standard hours, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. On Thursday at 4 p.m., we get an urgent message from Karen stating that we all must report to Central Office Friday morning at 9 a.m. and to bring our USB flash drives. We were told that if we didn't bring the flash drives, we would be sent back to go get them. She didn't say why. Obviously, I wasn't happy about how unprofessional it was to give such little notice about a meeting that requires a 2-hour drive one way and to reschedule my entire day of meetings for PC repairs. I called some associates in Central Office to find out what was going on. Apparently, Karen had convinced herself that flash drives were bad and that IT field support had bad stuff on them. Completely on a whim, mind you. The plan was to collect all flash drives, wipe them, and then give them back without telling us. The sheer stupidity of this idea was off the charts, considering we kept all of our important troubleshooting tools and information on there. Since I did the imaging, my flash drive had everything regarding our computer image on it. All software, drivers, multiple versions of Windows, along with the complete documentation of how to set it all up. Cue malicious compliance. I was not happy about how Karen did not tell us what was being done or why. I decided to just play dumb and came to the meeting and turned in the drive. Sure enough, they were wiped without our consent or knowledge and then given back to us. A few weeks go by and they ask me about how things are going with the image. I simply tell them that it's been erased by Karen without my knowledge, so unfortunately there was nothing I could do, and I'm not about to recreate it all from scratch. At this point, I was sick of volunteering my time for nothing in central office, and it was making my normal job much harder, so I was happy to wash my hands of that. Needless to say, central office had to recreate the image and documentation completely from scratch, dozens of hours of work. Karen was eventually reassigned to another unit and things got better in IT after that. I'm kind of like a folk hero in that agency now. Everyone was happy to have Karen gone. Edit. Just to clarify, I did actually have a backup of my drive, just not the one that central office knew about. I chose to delete it before I turned in my drive. Am I the jerk for triggering my stepmom into a rage? My parents have been divorced for 17 years. There were allegations that my dad cheated on my mom, which my dad and stepmom strongly reject. He got with stepmom almost immediately after divorcing my mom. Marriage of 15 years with 2 kids. My sister and I truthfully believe the allegations, but keep our opinions to ourselves. Over the last 17 years, my sister and I have had a civil relationship with our stepmother and have bit our tongues about any snide comments, like we could have afforded a mortgage for a bigger house if we didn't have to pay child maintenance. They have also made a big deal about not being able to put my sister's wedding photo up in the house due to how they were mistreated at the ceremony. In reality, the mistreatment involved my mother and my grandparents opting to not talk to her at the wedding, and as a result, she felt very excluded, although there were 100 guests. Today, we were discussing a birthday party for my sister's 30th, and my dad made comments about how they wouldn't be able to sit at the same table as my mother and grandparents, as my mother would refuse and they wouldn't get along well. My stepmom went on a lengthy and aggressive rant about how immature and ridiculous this was, and how they should be able to talk normally like other normal families do. She also became increasingly aggressive and brought up the wedding photo situation again. At this point, my sister and I denied the correlation between her bad experience at the wedding and the ability to hang a wedding photo of my sister on the wall. I then suggested that I could tell them the real reason why she was ignored at her wedding, but that it would cause her to be upset, and so I tried to leave the room. However, after hearing her continue to argue and yell at my sister, I returned and explained the reason why she was ignored at the wedding was due to the fact that from my mother's side of the family's point of view, she broke up a family. From this point onwards, she started to become increasingly aggravated and aggressively screamed at my sister and I on the driveway, stating,
"How dare you accuse me of breaking up a family? I met your dad at a bar, as he was always there due to how unhappy he was."
due to the marriage. We tried to explain that this was not our point of view, but my mother's family's point of view, and my sister and I honestly are baffled about why she's hung up about this, as the wedding happened 3 to 4 years ago. We chose to leave as she was becoming very aggressive, and our dad did not help de-escalate the situation and simply stood there in silence while she screamed in our faces and shook her finger in our faces. Since we left, he has not reached out to see if we are okay or to talk about what happened. We sent him a message to see if he'd like to talk, and he declined, stating he wasn't in the right mental state. Am I the jerk for suggesting she essentially reaped what she sowed? Edit. Thank you so much for the replies. My sister and I greatly appreciate all the opinions shared. Just to be clear, my mother has no ill feelings in this situation and isn't hung up on the divorce. She just doesn't want to make small talk with my stepmom. You do realize that in a moment of anger, your stepmom admitted that, at a minimum, she and your father emotionally cheated, although it surely sounds like they physically cheated as well, before the marriage was over? I met your dad at a bar as he was always there due to how unhappy he was, due to the marriage. I mean, at that point, your parents were still together, so yes, your father cheated on your mother. OP. Yeah, we did realize this after we walked away, but figured it could in theory be after the divorce was settled, as he would have been unhappy then too. We are leaning towards your comment though, and think she slipped up. We had always been told that they met after the divorce, so things maybe aren't adding up. Please remind both your dad and stepmom they messed up their story. She told on herself and literally blamed your mom for ruining their marriage in the process. She disrespected your guy's mom to your faces, insinuating she was so horrible your father had no choice but to leave his family to go sit at a bar. My dad cheated on my mom for 20 years before we found out, and all of your dad's reactions and stuff sound exactly like him. Not the jerk. It seems like you hit a nerve. This wasn't the first time someone has told her she was a homewrecker. There might be some truth to it. Don't invite this woman to your sister's birthday party, as your stepmom will only cause a scene. I would go no contact with her. Go very low contact with your dad, as he didn't stick up for you and your sister, nor did he tell you that you were wrong. You're the jerk. Unpopular opinion, but that was not your fight or your business who your mom talks to, and you are grown up now. Yet you deliberately provoked hysterics. You saw your stepmother was having some mental issues and responded by trying to upset her more and blow up your father's life for things that happened 17 years ago that even your mother is over. That is being a jerk to your dad. Your mother may be over it, but you clearly are not. Am I the jerk for calling out a man for stealing his stepson's birthday present? I'm a little upset right now, but I thought I should get your opinion before I have an even bigger blow up. So I'm 30, male, and my cousin, who's 40, female, her son Jake turned 16 recently. I'm very close with my cousin, and her son calls me Uncle OP. My cousin called me about a week ago and said she was planning on getting her son a car for his birthday, but with the rising price of cars lately, she was a bit short. She asked if I could contribute to his gift. I said of course. Give me a couple days to move some stuff around and I can send over about $1,000. She seemed very appreciative. I later talked with my husband about it, and he said that I should ask my cousin what he wants for his birthday and give him the option of contributing to his car or buying him whatever else he may want. I thought that was fair, so I messaged him, and he informed me his grandmother bought him a new car about 2 weeks ago, and he would prefer an Amazon gift card. A week before his mother asked me for money for a car, his grandmother bought him one. I asked a couple more questions. I found out the car was actually at his house already. He was annoyed because his stepdad had been using it since his grandma dropped it off. I asked, why is your stepdad using your new car that you haven't even driven yet? And he says because his stepdad just totaled his about 5 days ago. Little background. Stepdad is a blue-collar worker with a white-collar taste. Thinks he deserves all of the best things because he's the man of the house. He didn't even buy that house. He moved into the house that my cousin owned already. Once, I was over at their house for dinner, and he demanded the largest steak because he was the man of the house. That's what we're working with here. So I called Vanessa, and I asked her what's going on, and she said, well, since my husband totaled his car and he didn't have full coverage, he's going to take Jake's, and I'm going to buy Jake a used car. I blew up on her. I said, I'm not buying your husband a car. I thought it was absolute BS the way she made it sound like I was contributing to buy a car for Jake. Here's where I might be the jerk. I called the grandmother. Grandma's upset. The car is in her name still. She told her daughter Vanessa her husband is not allowed to drive it. Now Vanessa is telling me that I'm the jerk because I told her mother about how her husband is essentially stealing her son's car, and I don't understand everything going on. All she wanted was my help, and I made things worse for her. I want to tell her to leave her crappy husband because all he does is take, but I'm trying to contain myself. Update 1. Took the day off to get down to the business. Nailed down some timeline issues. Jake got his car from his grandma on a Monday. Wednesday, stepdad totaled his car, started using Jake's. Jake told me his stepdad was very upset he had a nicer, newer car than him and got into an argument with his wife about it. I think he totaled his car on purpose. It would explain why insurance isn't covering anything. Heading over to the grandma's house now, talking about the money Jake's grandfather left for him and possibly getting Jake out of the house. Family tree. Vanessa and I are second cousins. Our mothers are first cousins. They were raised together by their grandmother, so they were very close. Jake's grandma is my mother's first cousin. Jake calls me Uncle OP, but technically he's my second cousin once removed. I'm almost 20 years older than he is. Not the jerk. You stopped a thief from stealing something big. You did the right thing. I also think your cousin was just as much of a thief, and I bet her son has lost a lot of respect for his mom. Not the jerk. Vanessa and her husband are thieving jerks. You had every right to reach out to your nephew's grandmother. That said, I certainly wouldn't trust Vanessa on any joint gift givings in the future. Not the jerk. Lying to you about what your money would be going towards is a jerk move. I wouldn't go so far as telling her to divorce the guy because that's liable to cause some long-term damage to your relationship. But you totally did the right thing calling grandma. It's her money and it was intended for her grandchild. Am I the jerk for not buying a new PC for my boyfriend? I, 24 female, live with my boyfriend, 27 male. For some context, we've been dating for 4 years and living together for 8 months. We live in an apartment I inherited along with one more other house that I rent out and some cash inheritance. Now on to the story. Me and my boyfriend, we both love playing video games. We both have full-time jobs, but still find time to play together as well as separately with our own friends. He's a much better player than I am. He plays tournaments and competitions, whereas I just play for fun. A few months ago, my boyfriend started talking about some new PC and other items he wanted to upgrade his setup and how he was saving up for it. I was okay with it since we have separate finances. He doesn't pay for the utilities, but splits grocery, which wasn't an issue because I had extra income from the rental property. I thought I could use my inheritance money and get myself an expensive set upgrade as well. I took suggestions from YouTube and some friends. I scheduled the delivery for the day that I knew he won't be home all day. The setup came, they sent someone from the store to set it all up for me. I used the PC for a while and it was amazing. My boyfriend came home during the evening and saw my new PC. I was so excited to see his reaction, but his face remained very dull. He looked at me and asked why it was on my side of the room. I told him it was because it's mine. He asked me to confirm that I bought his dream PC setup for myself, and I said yes. He got visibly mad, but then said,
It's useless for you. We should just swap. You don't play well and won't be able to use it to its full potential. You can have mine.
At first, I just laughed because I genuinely thought he was joking, but then I realized he was being serious. I told him no. I said that I bought this for me. He blew up at me and told me that I need to buy the same one for him as well. When I said no again, he started yelling about how unfair I was being and how I wouldn't be able to appreciate technology like that since I'm too dumb to even understand the specs. By that point, I was losing my crap, so I told him to get out. He grabbed a few items and left to stay with his best friend. Now his best friend and a few other friends are blowing up my phone, saying that I shouldn't own something so expensive that I don't understand, and I could buy him the same setup too since I can afford it due to the inheritance. I don't have any loans, so it's not like I'm saving the money for something particular in the future, which is making me doubt if I was the jerk. Edit. To everyone saying that it's kind of my fault for buying the exact same setup he told me about and flaunted in his face, I do understand your point and take responsibility for it, but he never really mentioned any specific models. Like he would say how this brand has launched some really powerful item in the past few years, or that brand has such amazing monitors. I did know the brands he was referring to, but when it came to purchasing, I depended on YouTube reviews and suggestions from my gaming friends. It was purely a coincidence that it happened to be exactly what he wanted. I do understand that I should have been maybe more aware, but I genuinely didn't know that it would offend him since I wasn't doing it out of spite. If anything, at the back of my mind, I had thought like we could have twin setups eventually and make cheesy TikTok videos on weekends. Entitled much? He lives rent-free, doesn't pay for utilities, and only pays for half the groceries. Are you kidding me? Girl, he was demanding money from you. Why would you take that? Not the jerk. Help by packing the rest of his belongings, change the locks, and put his junk on the front stoop. Karen loses her mind because I'm deaf. So, some backstory first. I work at a large grocery store chain. As someone who stocks groceries, replaces items that have been left or returned throughout the day, and various other chores around the store. It's a pretty small store, so most of the employees can do all of the tasks. So this particular night, I was putting away a cart of items that customers decided they didn't want, overstock, or were damaged. There was a separate area where damaged items went, obviously. Now, I should preface this with the fact that I'm not completely deaf. I can faintly hear things like slamming doors, loud phones, ringtones, or some things like that. Though I cannot hear voices at all, even loud yelling. While I am deaf, I know sign language, have a large pin and lanyard that I wear that informs people that I am in fact deaf. In addition to this, I have a small notebook that has a variety of pre-written responses to questions, sort of like flashcards. Though communication is difficult sometimes, I try my best to make things work, and I'm very prepared. Most people are understanding, work with me, and we get through the conversation. Some kind people even sign with me. that always makes me smile. I'm pretty young and don't look like the typical hearing impaired person, so when people sometimes get a little grumpy because I don't respond right away, they're very apologetic. Not this time. This is where the story gets good. Cast. We've got me, the deaf teenager. We've got Crazy Karen. We've got Nice Customer, Store Manager 1. We've got Regional District Manager 2. So I'm mulling along one evening and decided to get an early start on the overstock from the day, which was filling a shopping cart to the max. So this was earlier than I normally begin. There were more people still in the store as opposed to when I usually started. No big deal, I started anyway. About half a shopping cart later, I'm in the paper towel section when I feel someone roughly poke me in the shoulder. I jump and turn around, startled to see this lady. She's taller than me, and I'm no slouch. I'm 6 feet tall, or 72 inches. She's very thin, probably mid-50s, fizzy blonde hair only held back by a hat atop her head. This was back in September of 2020, and of course, she wasn't wearing a mask. She begins to what I assume was yell, judging by the aggressive look on her face. I begin to point to my lanyard and ears, trying to communicate that I can't hear. According to the Nice Customer, who I will introduce in a moment, she was saying things like,
"I'm talking to you. I've been trying to get your attention for 5 minutes."
She then takes a step forward and grabs my lanyard, yanking it hard and causing it to unsnap from around my neck. She throws it to the ground. At this point, I'm very nervous and I start to panic. I try to actually say, "I can't hear," but I'm not sure how it came out, as I've never actually heard my own voice. My significant other says it sounds very cute, however. It's at this point the Nice Customer enters the picture. I see him round the corner. A 30-something-year-old man, I assume, rounds the aisle and walks up to the Crazy Karen, asking her what the problem was. This is all that he wrote down for me, saying what he said after the incident. Nice Customer looks over to me, and I frantically point to the pin on my mask and grab my notebook and scribble down, "I'm deaf, and I don't know why she's yelling at me." Nice Customer turns to Crazy Karen, and they exchange some words. Things like, "Can't you see he's deaf? Why are you yelling at him like that?" And responses like,
"He's not deaf. He's just ignoring me because he's a lazy little jerk."
This goes on for a few minutes, and I finally begin to cry, as this has caused a scene with people starting to surround us. It finally attracted the attention of 2 managers, Manager 1 and Manager 2. Manager 1 walks up to me, while Manager 2 walks to Nice Customer and Crazy Karen, who have now really started shouting at each other. Manager 1 no sign and asks me if I'm alright. I say I am and wipe the tears from my face and grab my lanyard from the ground. Manager 1 tells me to grab my things and wait for her in the employee break room. About 15 minutes later, Manager 1 and Manager 2 walked in with a police officer. The Crazy Karen had been arrested. Manager 1 explains to me in sign language that Crazy Karen had been arrested for third-degree assault, and the officer needed a written statement and asked if I wanted to press charges. I happily say yes and give my statement. The Nice Customer stuck around, and I wrote him a thank you note. Manager 1 also gave him a gift card for being an upstanding citizen. That was by far the worst experience I've ever had with a customer, but I'm thankful for awesome people like Nice Customer, Manager 1, and Manager 2. Also, Crazy Karen got sentenced to a few months in jail, probation, and was fined a hefty amount, and I honestly hope it really messes with her life. I never meant to downplay any bad behavior or anything like that. I was simply giving my honest opinion, and I honestly hope it really takes a toll on her. Babysitting means paying your kids' dental bills? Years ago, I would often babysit my neighbor's daughter who was about 9. He was a divorced father with the kind of an ex that would send spreadsheets of child-rearing expenses calculated to the penny and weekly invoices complete with terms and penalties of her own choosing for late payments. He paid big child support and generally paid her invoices on time because she would cut off access to kiddo if he didn't. His ex, the snake, and I had basic text messaging contact. She and I had a previous dust-up because a sudden weather change necessitated a jacket for kiddo. We popped into the nearest discount store and I let her pick a jacket. Kiddo loved it, but her mother threw a giant fit at me because it wasn't brand name. I blew it off and the neighbor and I laughed about it when he reimbursed me. She gave me the silent treatment. Darn. Time moved forward. Father always reimbursed kiddo's expenses and encouraged fun and healthy activities. One day, he called me and apologized that he was getting held up at work and kiddo had an orthodontist appointment. He asked me to take her, I agreed, and he called the dentist to authorize. We got there and they wouldn't see her without a payment, $225. It was necessary. Kiddo's braces were hurting her. Dad wasn't available, but I knew he would reimburse me, so I put it on my credit card rather than calling her snake of a mother. Kiddo got patched up, Dad reimbursed me, I paid the card and didn't use it. A few months later, I got a past due call from my card company, repeat charges from the orthodontist. I let Dad know and called the orthodontist, who told me I signed an automatic payment agreement. I gave my, "Oh no, I'm just the babysitter" speech and didn't get far with them, so I canceled the card. Dad apologized profusely and he reimbursed me. A month later, I get a nasty call from the orthodontist about my card declining. I kindly inform them that I'm not the parent and I provide the snake's phone number. About an hour later, the snake is furiously calling and texting me. I silenced my phone and looked later. She maxed out my voicemail and all of her text messages were about how wrong it was of me to deny her kid medical care. One voicemail was from the police letting me know that she filed a complaint, how I could get a copy from my attorney, and inquiring about whether I wanted to counter-complain. I sure did. I moved out of state and the prosecutor called me once just to ask questions, then I never heard back from the prosecutor. Last I heard from Kiddo's grandmother, the snake took a plea bargain, Dad got custody, and Grandma was enjoying a lot more time with Kiddo. Am I the jerk for telling my housemate his girlfriend can't stay here anymore? I share an apartment with a friend I've known for years. We're both male 24. We've had this place for over a year and haven't had any real issues. We get along well and do heaps together. He works full-time, I'm a university student, and we split all bills, food, and rent down the middle. We hate the idea of shared houses and just wanted to feel like a home. A few months ago, he started seeing a girl, T, who spends every day and night at our place. T is also a university student and she can't stand her studio apartment. Until recently, I've had no issue with T being here and have never even asked her to pay for anything. She eats all meals at our place and takes food to uni if she needs. The way I see it, Housemate and I just buy a bit more food and it really doesn't matter. The other week, I got home from uni, went to the kitchen to make a coffee. I had an assignment I needed to work on, so I wanted to pick me up. And when I opened the fridge, I noticed some Red Bulls. I just assumed my housemate had bought them for us, so I grabbed one and drank it. The next morning at breakfast, T opens the fridge and then got super angry that one of her Red Bulls was missing. I said it was me and that I thought my housemate had bought them. She started telling me how she bought them for herself and how I should have asked and that I needed to apologize for taking it. I was going to tell T that it's my fridge and I shouldn't have to ask if I can have stuff in it, but I didn't want to start conflict, so I just apologized. She demanded I buy her a replacement. Since then, she started labeling any drinks or food she brings for herself and makes a point of saying it's hers. After all this, I've said to my housemate that I don't want her staying at our place unless she's going to start paying rent, paying for bills, and pitching in to pay for food. I don't want to pay for her anymore, just so that she can mistreat me for taking a drink from my own fridge. Am I the jerk? Update. Just to address some of the common things I've been reading, also thanks all, it's nice to see only a few said I'm the jerk. I avoided saying anything at the time because my housemate and I are close to brothers, and I don't want to fight like this to make him have to pick. Honestly, I know he would dump her and stick with me. Housemate is a great guy, and I in no way think that he's trying to use me. When I've had girlfriends stay or we've had mates over, we've just kept to 50-50 as always. Sometimes people buy us food or pitch in as thanks, but we never expect it. He and I act more as family in a house rather than housemates, which is why it's never been an issue. T is very manipulative. As a side story, housemate and I always do a movie night once a week. It's our tradition and we love it. T has said she wants to join us, and then every time, around 30 minutes in, she will whisper something to him or act a certain way and draw him away to go in the other room. Honestly, it's peeved me a tad, as she is clearly just trying to assert some dominance there, but I also joke with the housemate about it. I have laughed at the few comments calling me a pushover, and I can see how it looks like that here. I normally am the first to stand up and react to something and can't stand people being rude. In this situation, it hasn't been an issue until this, and my desire to not cause an issue was less about her, more about not wanting conflict with the housemate. Since I talked to him about her needing to pay or leave, she has spent more time at her own place, but now just comes around and has the ability to destroy the mood in any room. I want them to separate. I think he can't see this lasting either, but she is hot and he doesn't think straight. Not the jerk. Your roommate may actually be violating the lease by letting another person stay over too much. But beyond that, you need to sit down with your roommate and try to set some reasonable visitation limits. Unfortunately, beyond getting the landlord to establish a no trespass on her, there's not much you can do to really enforce anything other than look for another place. Not the jerk. She has to chip in if she's staying over that much. It's still your house and your fridge. Petty solution. Write up all the things she consumes and present her with a bill, or demand that she buys you a replacement. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the girlfriend? Please let us know.
I want to know why she's drinking Red Bulls. Monster for the win, bruh.
Am I the jerk for saying that I don't love my niece to her face? I know the title makes it look bad, but hear me out. I, 26 female, have a niece, Laura, who's 8, through my sister, Kim, who's 33, and another niece, Amy, who's 6, through my brother, Tom, who's 35. I know my siblings love their kids wholeheartedly, but when it comes to parenting, they each have different styles. This comes from the way that we were all brought up by our parents who used the "because I'm the parent and you're my kid, obey me without question" mindset that we all resented. Kim is the type of mother who just can't seem to say the word no, while Tom will at least give an explanation as to why. While Amy is a sweet, energetic girl, she does listen and know to respect people's rules and boundaries. Laura does not. Laura is entitled. Laura is impatient. Laura is whiny. Laura will go through a massive tantrum if she is denied anything and will get progressively worse the longer she's denied because she knows her mom will cave eventually. I haven't watched Laura since she was 6 and it was a nightmare. She yelled, screamed, kicked me, drew on the walls, and broke one of my framed pictures, all because I made her dinner instead of getting her fast food. Kim did apologize for Laura, but shrugged off the idea of giving out a punishment, citing that kids will be kids. Never again would I be responsible for my niece again. Amy, on the other hand, may need to be told something more than once, but ultimately is a respectful kid. I definitely babysit for Tom multiple times and do fun activities with Amy when I can. The coming August, before the start of school, I was planning on going with some friends to the Mouse Kingdom in Florida. Due to life events, they dropped out, but I still wanted to go and asked Tom if he and his wife would be down to come with me, and I'd go 50-50 on everything with them. They were delighted, and we all decided to go. Obviously, Kim found out and wanted to come too, but we all knew she couldn't afford it, so I thought everything was settled. Well, Laura found out, and at our family dinner, she was super upset about Amy getting a surprise trip, but not her. She then looked at me and said,
Auntie, you have a nice job and no kids. You can pay everything.
I told her that while I may make more money than her mom, I can't pay for everyone by myself. Laura said,
Yes, you can. You had money to pay for that car.
She pointed to my new car in the driveway.
You can pay for me and my mummy to go too.
I refused and cued the tantrum. It was awful, and she kept screaming,
Why?
and saying that if I really loved her, I'd make her happy by paying for the trip over and over. I kept refusing, and she got worse before I finally snapped and yelled back that I didn't love her. Ouch. That she was a mean girl, and that I didn't like being around her. That definitely shut her up, for a moment, before she started to sob and cry. Kim is berating me for being so heartless, and that I'm evil for favoring one niece over the other. Am I the jerk? Bruh. Edit for clarification. 1. Yes, I am aware that Laura's behavior is on Kim's choice of parenting. 2. Yes, Tom and I have spoken to Kim about Laura's behavior more than once, but it falls on deaf ears. At the end of the day, we have no authority over Laura, so there's only so much that we can do. 3. Laura doesn't have a dad, and Kim is a single mom, which is why she can't afford the trip. 4. I wasn't negotiating with Laura, I just kept saying no, but that wasn't good enough for her. I tried to walk away, but she would keep following me, demanding that I pay. 5. I didn't tell Kim about the trip, and neither did Tom, but we did tell our aunt, and I think that's how Kim found out. 6. No, Amy didn't tell Laura because it was supposed to be a surprise. Everyone sucks here except your niece. She's just an annoying kid. You're an adult, you should know better. ETA, you're aware she's learning this from your sister? So why aren't you talking to her instead of being mean to the kid? Wow, that took a turn. You're the jerk. Saying those words to a kid was massive jerk move. This is a very sad post. Of course you're the jerk. The way you keep defending yourself in comments makes me believe you aren't going to gain anything from this experience. You were cruel to that kid. Hard stop. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her niece? Please let us know.
Hey, at least she told her the truth.
You want me to only go on my break when you tell me to? Okay, I'll do just that. This malicious compliance happened years ago, and I remembered it while writing a YouTube comment. At the time, I was either in or just out of high school, and I made money by bagging groceries at the local supermarket. This job was very interesting, and there were a slew of terrible people employed at my location. But this story only has a cast of 2 people. Me, the overworked, underpaid grocery bagger, and my jerk of a supervisor. Let's call him Ray. Ray was an absolute jerk to everyone in the store, and nobody liked him. His shenanigans actually birthed my first romantic relationship, but that's a story for another day. The way my days at this job worked was I'd show up for a shift, clock in, and go up to whoever was supervising the front end that day. We had a rotation of 3 to 4 supervisors, and I was cool with almost all of them because I actually did my job, and asked them what the roster for the day looked like. Who's here, when are we going home, if anyone's coming in, and breaks. I was particularly interested in my break time according to the roster, so I can plan my shift accordingly. Ray was one of those supervisors, and for some reason, he hated when people would ask when their break was. Somebody would ask, and then he'd scream about,
When it's your break time, I'll let you know.
which might have worked for the cashiers, but not us baggers, as we'd be all over the store and also getting carts. One day, I asked him when I'm supposed to go on my break, and he blew up on me, saying that he'll let me know when it's time for my break. I work the rest of my shift and tell someone else I'm going on my break at a reasonable time and while there's coverage. I come back from the break, and he stopped me again to tell me he's in charge of the breaks. I say nothing and finish my shift. Cue malicious compliance. A few days later, he and I are working again. I know he's gonna scream about breaks again, so I just don't ask. After all, he'll let me know, right? So instead of talking to the supervisor, which that day was Ray, and letting him know I'm here, I just start working. And I continue working, and then I work some more. Finally, I realize 7 of my 8 hours have gone by, and I haven't had a single break. But Ray never did let me know it was time for my break. A few minutes after I thought this, Ray somehow finds out I've been working 7 hours today with no break, and he comes running up, screaming at me about how I didn't take a break, and how dare I and the company's gonna get into major trouble because they worked me 7 hours without a break, and then asked why I never took my break. I responded with, Well, Ray, you said you'll let me know when it was time for my break, and you never let me know, so I never took a break. He exploded again and screamed at me to take my break now, and I finally took my 15-minute break, worked another half hour before clocking out to go home. Ray kept being a jerk about everything, but he always gave me my break times in advance for the next few months until he threw another fit at someone else and walked out of that store for good. Everyone else was completely amicable, and after Ray left, I had no problems with breaks again. Am I the jerk for walking out on my job with no warning when I'm one of the only employees? For context, I, female 18, have been working at this coffee shop for over 2 years now. I close 4 days a week with only me and one manager left to run the store from about 2 p.m. to close. The other 3 days, a kid, a guy who's 16, closes with a different manager. This is about the only staff we have, excluding the owner, who will never close. Another kid, who's 19, who can only work day shifts due to college. Another kid who's also 18, who works days and does night classes. And a grown man who works in the back, baking all morning, and he has another job in the afternoon, making him only available in the mornings. So they very clearly need me working there with them. I've been there for a while now, and I really don't mind the people. They can be a bit rude sometimes, but I'm super shy and don't talk much anyway. So I stay out of everyone's way and just get all my work done. Anytime I've worked with my manager, she tells me about how I'm the best employee she's worked with, and she likes how I just get stuff done. Fast forward to a week ago. I went inside of work on one of my days off to say hi, order a coffee, and get a sandwich. I'm a vegetarian. I've struggled a lot with food and being able to eat enough for my whole life, and I always had a hard time not getting grossed out when eating meat. So I stopped, and my relationship with food got so much better. So I ordered a grilled cheese and got my coffee and I left. I was driving away and I went to take a bite. I take one swallow and it's fine. When I went to take another, I felt a super gross texture and I instantly spit out my food and pulled it apart. They put chicken in my sandwich. They know my diet and what I normally order. I was so upset, but thought it was a mistake, so I took the loss on the $3 sandwich, felt a little gross and moved on. The next day when I went into work, When I get there, there's normally a shift change, so I get to see my other coworkers as they leave. I was talking to a guy in the break room while getting ready to work, and he was about to leave. I casually made a little joke about how I'm never coming to this place again after they got my order wrong, just trying to mock rude customers, and I told him about my grilled cheese I ordered and how it came with meat. He laughed and told me that was actually our manager that made me that, and it wasn't an accident. She wanted to pull a prank on me and make me try the chicken because she said it's delicious, and she even gave it to me free of charge. After he told me what she said, I packed up all my stuff, took my hat and apron off, and told the manager what I heard, how I'm done, and how disrespectful that was to do. I'm still getting calls and texts telling me how rude it was to leave with no 2 weeks notice, and how much this shows that I'm just petty and I can't take a joke. They are so short-staffed now that they close early, and I know it's affecting their business. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. What she did is food tampering. I believe that it's against health regulations and it can be a crime in some places. I don't know the rules where you live. Not the jerk. 2 weeks is a courtesy, not a legal requirement. This established stop deserving your courtesy when your manager played a prank on you, forcing you to eat something you don't eat. You burned that reference, but given how crappy they're being about this, they probably weren't going to give you a good reference anyway. Not the jerk. They're lucky you're not suing them. It's never okay to mess with someone's food. They didn't know whether you had an allergy or some other health issue. That was not a prank, it was bullying. Good on you for standing up for yourself. I wouldn't have had the confidence at your age. Both are jerks. You don't mess with someone's order intentionally, but you also don't walk out of your job without notice. If you gave notice on the spot, I'd be fine, but not quitting with no notice. You won't be getting a good reference from there, obviously. Everyone sucks here. What your manager did sucks. Pranks that are good-humored are usually fine, but they can go too far and it can be upsetting. But you suck too, because you just walked out, costing your business money and punishing your coworkers. You both behaved very childishly, and you could have been the bigger person. Easier said than done sometimes, but still. Side note, just walking out like that will look really bad when you apply for future jobs, because if they call the manager and hear about what you did, you're out of luck. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk for quitting on the spot or not? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for charging a $70 fee to family members who last minute canceled their RSVPs to my wedding? I, 26, female, just got married to my husband, who's 30, male. I have a rocky relationship with most of my family on my mother's side. I haven't seen my mother in roughly 7 or 8 years. We haven't spoken, the typical strained mother-daughter relationship. Regardless, I chose to invite some of my family from my mother's side to attend my wedding. It was small, so I wanted the important family to be there. While I by no means have great relationships with the people on that side of the family, they did a lot for me when I was younger, and I wanted them to be a part of this special day. My mother was not invited for a number of reasons. She's known to steal the spotlight and cause problems. Plus, she has openly shot down and berated my husband to family members, despite never meeting him on the basis that he is an artist, and that's how he makes a living. He makes far more a year than she ever has, a little ironic. So inviting her was just not a smart choice. Anyways, after sending invitations, word of course gets out on that side of the family that I'm getting married. I get a call from my cousin about 3 weeks before the wedding. She wanted to warn me that my mother had decided, for whatever twisted reason in her mind, to get married to her fiancé of now a couple of years on the exact same date. Keep in mind that my wedding was planned 8 months in advance. A week before my wedding, I get a call from one of my aunts on that side explaining that she will be unable to attend due to a family matter that has arisen. Code word for my mother's wedding, of course. As soon as I got that first call, I sent out a mass email to everyone explaining that anyone else who cancels last minute who has already RSVP'd will be charged $70 due to the catering and venue fees that would be wasted on them not being present. I would be able to enforce this given that all parties had to pay an additional $25 for each room that we booked for them at the hotel. So I had all their information, and they were made aware of that charge. We paid for the rest of their room fees, by the way. Logically, I wasn't actually planning on enforcing this. It was just more of an I know what you were all doing and I'm really mad about it move. So I spent about 2 days after that email dealing with non-stop phone calls from family on that side saying they had to cancel, and it was absolutely ridiculous that I was forcing them to pick a side. I told them that they had RSVP'd to my wedding months before my mother's, and coming to mine was also just blatant common courtesy. Long story short, that entire side did not show up, aside from my cousin who warned me of the whole thing. I'm still debating actually charging their cards $70, but I think it's too petty, and being honest, waiting and even thinking about this on my honeymoon isn't fun. I spent the second night in France crying on my husband's shoulder over this. So, am I the jerk? Update. I will not be charging the cards because fraud. Thanks everyone for reminding me that those charges do exist and that my mother's side would most likely press them. Not the jerk, but cut all contact with everyone but the cousin that warned you. What a bunch of horrible people to be related to. Everyone sucks here. Congratulations, you played straight into your mother's hands and made yourself look like the unreasonable one instead of her. I'm sorry it cost you this much to learn that you can't count on your family of origin, but literally charging them for it will not fix or change that. Forget them and focus on the family you're building with your husband instead. Am I the jerk for hurting my mom's feelings? My kids, who are 12 and 8, are in gymnastics and eat a high-protein diet. Most of what they eat is meat and dairy. They usually have yogurt and fruit or turkey bacon for breakfast. My son is old enough to make his own lunch, so I let him make whatever he wants. Even though I don't supervise his choices, he almost always makes something like a chicken and cheddar sandwich on whole grain bread or tuna salad. My daughter is learning to make her own lunches too, and usually copies her brother. Dinners are usually fish, steak, chicken, or turkey with a vegetable. My mom came to visit yesterday, and we took her out to dinner to a nice steakhouse. My son got steak and mushrooms, which comes with a baked potato, but he asked for it to be substituted for a side salad. My daughter got surf and turf, which also came with a potato, which is fine. My mom teased my son for ordering a salad, which annoyed him. I told her to stop. She also tried to get my daughter to order off the kids' menu, but my daughter wanted shrimp and refused. I again told my mom to let them eat what they want. This morning, my mom made pancakes for breakfast before any of us got up. When my son woke up, he went to the fridge and got yogurt and blueberries. My mom told him to put them back because the pancakes were almost done. My son refused. They started arguing, which is when I came out, and again told my mom to cut it out. She said it was rude to get something from the fridge when someone is cooking for you. I said that the kids can eat what they like. When my daughter came out, she got some yogurt and sat with her brother to split the blueberries. My husband and I ate the pancakes, but my mom was upset. She said she wanted to take us all out to lunch to thank us for dinner. She took us to a pizza place. My son wanted the chicken parmesan. My mom said, "No, he'll have pizza." I told the waiter to bring us the chicken parmesan on a separate check and I'll pay for it. My mom, again, accused me of being rude. My daughter asked for a slice of Meat Lover's pizza. My mom gave me a smug look and praised my daughter, which I could tell annoyed my son. When the food arrived, my daughter asked for some of my son's because it looked yummy. My mom said, "No, eat your pizza." My daughter said, "I will. I want to try the chicken." My son cut her a portion and put it on her plate. He said, "I'll try some of your pizza too, so Grandma stops being mean to me." My mom scowled at him and told me to reprimand him, but I refused and said she was, in fact, being mean to him, and kids aren't stupid and can tell when someone is rude to them. The rest of lunch was awkward, and now my mom is hiding in the guest room. Husband thinks I should clear the air with my mom before the kids get back from practice. He said I didn't help anything and should apologize, otherwise I might as well get her a hotel because the rest of the trip will be miserable. I may have been hard on her. Was I a jerk to my mom? Not the jerk. Why is your mom so set on controlling what the kids are eating? Isn't it better that they're at least picking healthy options versus gorging themselves on sweets? OP. I think she doesn't approve of their activities and is trying to prove something to me. She thinks they aren't having a real childhood. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Grandma? Please let us know.
Tell Grandma she can take us out for pizza whenever she likes. I could really go for some CC's right now.
Am I the jerk for demanding my neighbors return my daughter's bike that she gave them? Yesterday, I noticed my daughter, 12, came home without her bike, looking a little upset. I asked her where her bike was, and she said she gave it to her friend who lives across from us. Now, I'll be honest, I was upset to hear that she gave away her bike as I'm a single mother of 8. Side note, don't judge me. Only 4 of my kids are biologically mine. The rest I adopted due to my friend passing and my sister's mental health problems. I worked extremely hard to get my daughter that bike. It was literally over $1,000, but my daughter really wanted it and loves it, so it was also a surprise to me. But I let it go, because at the end of the day, I bought my daughter that bike. It's not up to me to control what my daughter decides to do with it. Later that day, I hear my daughter crying in her room, so I knock on her door to make sure she's okay. She broke down and admitted that her friend's mom pressured her into giving away her bike, even though she didn't want to. Now my daughter has already given her friend her old bike after she upgraded, so I honestly don't understand how selfish this woman is. The next day, I went over to the neighbor's house to speak to the mom without my daughter and demanded she return the bike, telling her that she better return the bike or I will report it as stolen and that she had no right stealing my daughter's bike from her. She denied stealing it, but in the end gave my daughter's bike back. She told me that I'm a psycho jerk who clearly has issues and that she doesn't want her daughter involved with people like me, so she'll no longer be allowing her daughter around mine. When I told my daughter that, she became really upset and blamed it on me. My daughter was really close to the neighbor's daughter and is now mourning losing a friend. I now feel like I approached the whole situation wrong and that I could have been more sensitive about the whole issue in order to salvage the friendship. Your daughter is 12, so any agreement she makes with an adult is not valid. That's your bike, not your daughter's. By the way, you have 8 kids and you have a $1,000 bike for a 12-year-old? What? When she gave it away, you initially just let the issue go? Are you okay in the head? Your daughter is upset. Big whoop. You'll see her upset 1,000 more times. It's life. She'll be fine. OP. I'm always trying to evolve with my parenting. I just feel like if I give my daughter something, then I don't own it anymore, as it would be with anyone else. But I can see your point, and I could always learn and improve. My daughter is a really athletic person. I try my best to encourage her in whatever she loves doing. She's currently in boxing classes and also does cycling with a group of kids her age. Mailman wasn't trying to deliver my packages. I got revenge. For context, in my country, if your package gets sent through the National Post Service, you're basically done for. It takes 200 years and they never actually deliver it. I don't know how it is in other countries, but here they're supposed to ring the doorbell if the package doesn't fit the mailbox, and if you don't answer, they leave a notice and you have to go pick it up all the way at the post office. The problem is that my mailman doesn't even try to deliver them. He just leaves the notice without even ringing the doorbell and leaves. I've had to pick up nearly every package I've ordered because of that. Well, this time it was my last straw. I was obviously home because of lockdown. Suddenly, I received a call that immediately hung up. It was so fast that my phone didn't even ring, just showed up as a missed call. No doorbell, no nothing. I suspected it was the mailman and ran to the door only to find him inside the truck, looking straight at me before driving off. Well, I was upset and I called the post office to file a complaint. I explained the situation and the lady told me that I couldn't file a complaint because they are only instructed to ring the doorbell and calling is optional, and I couldn't prove that he didn't ring it. At first, I just avoided using them again at all costs, but the other day I ordered something and chose a delivery company from the ones listed on the website. Apparently, that company hires the National Post Service to deliver for them here. When I found out, I basically stalked the tracking info for days. It was about 2 weeks late, until one day late at night it said it had arrived in my country, which usually means that the next day it's going to be delivered. The next day, I woke up at 7 a.m. to check. My suspicions were correct. It said, out for delivery. I quickly grabbed something to eat, got in my car, and parked right outside of my house. Then I waited and waited and waited. 6 hours in total until I finally see the post truck pulling over. I grabbed my phone to record and watched as the mailman opened the door, already with a notice in his hand, and slid it inside my mailbox and turned around. I got out of the car and said, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" He didn't even look at me and said, "Just delivering packages, miss." Then I stood there as that jerk grabbed his phone to call me and quickly hung up. I smiled as I took my phone out of my pocket and sarcastically stated, "Oh, bummer, you didn't even give time to reach for the phone." He literally turned white. He couldn't even speak. I continued, "Now, can you give me my package, please?" He quickly opened the truck, almost tripped, and took out my package. See, wasn't that easier than your whole scheme? He finally manages to say, "Sorry, miss." I turned around and left. He probably thought he got lucky I didn't say anything else, but little did he know that I sent the video to the post office via email attached to my complaint. Well, let's just say I got a new mailman. This one tries to leave 1 second after ringing the doorbell, but at least he rings. Edit. 1. Everyone saying I should just install a camera That would work, yes, but then he would leave with the package and I would have to go pick it up. I wanted my package that day. 2. For everyone saying I got him fired, and that's not something to brag about. Firstly, as much as it isn't his fault and he's just following orders, he was not nice or professional. He literally saw me at the door one time and drove away while looking at me. Secondly, we don't even know if he was actually fired. I might be wrong, but I think here the regular mail carriers are considered public employees, which means they are rarely fired, just transferred to a different job. Entitled mom loses it because I bought a car she doesn't know how to drive. So I was talking to my husband and this story came up. He said I should share it here. To start off, this happened almost 8 years ago, so dialogue might be off a bit. So little backstory. My mom has a bad history with cars. She breaks them down within 2 years of getting them, no matter the condition they're in when she buys them. She cannot take care of them. When my older sister bought her first car at 19, my mom would borrow it for appointments and trips constantly. And by the time I was 18, you could tell she drove it. Well, I saved up money for 6 years, working hard to get enough for the car I wanted. And my grandpa even pitched in when I turned 18 and graduated high school with better grades than my sister. My grandpa went to the dealership with me and looked at Ford Focuses because that's what I wanted. Then I saw it, a 5-speed, 2-door Ford Focus, and I loved it. Why? Because my mom couldn't drive a standard. I smiled. So we get it for a steal at $4,000 up front. Then we drive home and the following conversation ensues. We've got me, we've got entitled mom, and we've got awesome grandpa, and we've got entitled sister. Me. I got my car. They run outside to check it and are admiring it and smiling. Entitled mom.
Wow. Hey, can I borrow it sometime?
Me. No, you can't drive stick, mom. Entitled mom is shocked.
What? But how are you gonna learn to drive it?
Awesome grandpa. I'm gonna teach her. Entitled sister looks angry. She can't drive stick either, and I know she planned to use my car since entitled mom damaged hers. Entitled sister.
But you can't take a driving test with a standard. They don't allow that.
Grandpa. Yes, they do. Now stop whining. It's her car, not yours. Unless you two were planning to take it from her. Entitled sister and entitled mom look nervous. They would never admit it to awesome grandpa. He'd kick them out. And since they lived with him at the time and were broke, that wasn't a good idea. Entitled sister.
Of course not. I just worry about my baby girl. That's all.
Me. Sorry, but no one is driving this car but me and awesome grandpa. I can't wait to learn. Over the next week, they glared at me and hated that I was learning. Mom asked grandpa to teach her at one point, and he said it was up to me since I had the only standard car. Nope, my car. I had that car until I was 22 when my husband crashed it due to avoiding a drunk driver. Best little car I ever had. Oh, and entitled mom still can't drive a standard. Edit. Oh my gosh, guys. I went to bed and you all blew this up so fast. Because it was mentioned a lot in the comments, I'm gonna put it here. Yes, I live in America, and when I said my mom was bad with cars, I did not mean gas and a mess, though she does make a mess. I meant that she actually drives like a nutcase. Examples are she rides her brakes constantly, forgets to turn the car all the way off, leaving the battery to die, doesn't change the oil, ever, expects others to repair it for free, takes shortcuts through roads that destroy your tires, drives as fast as she can over tracks, destroying the tires and the alignment, and she lets her friends in the car, and any car she drives that has no respect for her or the vehicle. My sister had stains on her passenger seat from one of the friends mom helped. I hope this clears things up a bit on why I was so eager to get a car she couldn't drive. Also, my grandfather had a rule. Keys always went on the key rack. Spares stayed at home in case you locked yourself out of your car with your keys inside it somewhere, and he could come and get you and save us from spending money to get the keys out. I used to work with a guy whose parents were constantly using his new vehicle. They never returned it with any gas in the tank. It was always dirty. He traded it in for an even nicer one, but with a manual. He was the only person in his family that could drive it. Have you ever had someone try to use your car without permission? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. Oh, I can't stand people that just take your stuff without asking. Am I the jerk for telling my brother-in-law's girlfriend she's boring because all she talks about is her job? I'm 34, female, and my brother-in-law's girlfriend, Faye, who's 32, recently got a new job. She got her master's in 2020 and never stops talking about it. My husband, Jack, who's 36, has noticed the same thing, and he has said his brother Luke, who's 32, talks about it too. It gets on our nerves, but we tolerate it because we know how excited Faye is about her degree and now this new job, which she also won't stop talking about because, as she says, she wouldn't have gotten it if she didn't pursue her master's since it's a requirement. We had them over for dinner last night with my parents and my father-in-law and mother-in-law. Once again, Faye brings up her new job. It doesn't start for another couple of weeks. She works in education, so her contracts are based on the school calendar, and she was talking about all the things she gets to do now that she really wanted to do. She mentioned it being a life goal. I asked her what was next. She asked what I meant. I asked her about things like kids or marriage, since they've been together for 3 years now. She said she didn't want to rush into marriage or kids until she had her goals in order, but marriage was something she and Luke had been seriously discussing. I asked when she'd have time for kids or marriage with her career goals. She said she'd make time. I said kids are a lot of work. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I told her that when I was pregnant, it wasn't feasible financially or logically to continue working as a stay-at-home mom, so I quit at 26. Faye said that she doesn't want kids she can't provide for, and she likes relying on herself because so many stay-at-home moms are financially trapped when they stop working and can't leave if the marriage falls apart for whatever reason. I'll be honest, I was offended by that. I told her not all of us are trapped. She agreed, but said you never know, and you should depend on yourself, even in marriage. Luke was nodding and agreeing. I said, it would also give you more to talk about other than your job. Faye asked if I had a problem with her talking about her job. I said no, but honestly, it's the only thing she seems to have that's mildly interesting. Everyone else talks about kids, home life, vacations, family, hobbies, but all you talk about is your degree, education, and this new job of yours. And I told her it was kind of boring. Faye said, then I won't bore you any further, and asked my in-laws how installing wood floors was going. We all moved on past the conversation until later that night. After Luke and Faye left, my mother-in-law told me I was rude. I told her I was telling the truth because we are all tired of hearing about it. Jack agreed, but mother-in-law said that while that was true, it's still an accomplishment no one, looked me up and down, and this family has done yet, and I seemed jealous. I said I wasn't jealous, but offended by some things she said. Mother-in-law told me I was only offended because Faye was right. Jack said she was right, but it was obvious she was directing those comments at me in a judgmental way, and my parents agree with me. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. She's excited, but that's not the main part. You're offended at her concerns about being a stay-at-home parent when you started it. I asked her what was next. She asked what I meant. I asked her about things like kids or marriage since they've been together for 3 years now. I asked when she'd have time for kids or marriage with her career goals. Seriously, you spent a conversation pursuing her on why her plans, note her plans, weren't good enough. This is on you. You're the jerk. Also, it's none of your business asking someone about their plans of having kids. Perhaps they tried and didn't get pregnant yet. Unless someone brings the topic up themselves, never just assume someone can and wants to. Thank you. I don't care if you're family or best friends since you were kids or strangers. It's none of your business what someone's future family plans are. OP is super judgy about it too. I used to be really vague like that too when judgy people would ask when I'm having kids because I didn't want to have the inevitable argument by telling them that I don't want to have kids. No matter what Faye's reasons and plans are, OP needs to mind her own beeswax. Edit. I'm not saying that you can't ask your friends and family about their plans for getting married or having kids. I'm saying that it can be a sensitive topic for a lot of people, and when someone gives you an answer, no matter what it is, you need to accept it. The fact that they've been together for 3 years and are not married might also be a sore spot for her. I think I'm sensitive to this discussion because my in-laws were awful to me, never took any interest in my work, my volunteer activities, my family, my hobbies, my interests. Maybe they thought I was boring because I wasn't a stay-at-home mom with kids to talk about. That sounds snarky, but it isn't. I mean it genuinely. I've never considered your point of view before. Either way, you weren't very kind to her. Kindness costs you nothing. You're the jerk. You're the jerk for so many reasons. 1. You never ask a woman when she's going to have kids. It might be a sensitive topic and it's none of your business. What if she doesn't want to have them at all? For some people, being a woman doesn't mean being a mom, and that's totally okay. 2. What she said about stay-at-home moms is true. You might not be trapped or feel that way, But it is undeniable that if you make your own money, you have a lesser chance to be trapped in a relationship. So I don't think you being offended by that statement is right. 3. She accomplished something that she feels proud of. Of course she's going to talk about it. I bet you talk about your kids because you're proud of them, just the same as she's proud of her education. Next time, maybe think through what you're going to say so you don't come across as a total jerk. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for how she acted or not? Please let us know.
When you meet a highly judgmental person in life, it's a good idea to avoid them like the plague.
You can't work with us. Okay, I won't. I started this job in December of 2018. The team was small, 7 of us, including me. Quickly after I started, it became clear that none of them liked me at all. The bullying started off subtly, ignoring me. I was aware of what they were doing, so after a little while of this, I began mirroring their behavior. They didn't like that, and it escalated. I began to develop migraines from the stress. As much as I hadn't been bothered in the beginning, there's only so long you can go in an environment like that without some kind of effect. By this point, it had been several months. The migraines started to affect my attendance. Of course, they didn't like that either, and it continued to escalate. The manager knew all that was happening, but nothing changed. Well, anyway, I wanted another baby, so my husband and I decided to use the job for what it was worth. A nice 9-month-long paid maternity leave. So about 1 year after I started the job, I became pregnant. Then came my birthday. I was expecting nothing, of course, but I got a card and some chocolates from the girls, aka the only one with a conscience signed it from the girls because she didn't want me to get anything, and no, they'd flat out refused. Put it down to pregnancy hormones, but when she gave it to me, I of course knew it was only from her and cried my little eyes out. This was a Thursday. The next day, I asked my manager to work alone. I covered all of the wards. I was a hospital phlebotomist, by myself while they stayed in the clinic. When I was done, I helped out the nursing assistants in the clinic across to avoid them. Later, my manager came down to see me and discuss. Apparently, they had complained to her that I had not helped them at all, even though it was so busy that they'd have to get the NAs to help, which was a lie since I was with the NAs all day. They never had to go help. I explained to the manager what had happened and that I just needed some space as the alternative would have been to go home. I began crying again. Pregnancy and the inevitable stress of being ganged up on for over a year by 5 people every day just gets to you after a while. The manager told me to take the following week off, free of charge, i.e. she'd not write me up. When I came back the following Monday, I wasn't okay, but I was better than I had been. I wondered what my reception would be, and lo and behold, it was horrible. A whole confrontation went down, where one of them had the audacity to ask me if I had considered their feelings when I told our manager I didn't want to work with them on that Friday. I knew I had turned some kind of mental corner because I laughed in her face, finally stood up for myself instead of just ignoring it, and then walked off to go do my job, and I didn't feel bad about it. This was in December 2019. At this point, I was about 6 weeks pregnant, and this is where my revenge began. I was pretty unwell through my pregnancy and so heavily protected by UK laws and by the hospital's very own maternity policies, I wasn't making much of an effort to go to work when I didn't feel 100% okay doing so. Needless to say, I had quite the chunk of time off between December 2019 and early 2020. Fast forward to March 2020, and as you all know, lockdown was in full swing, and we were days away from a nationwide lockdown. Of course, ordinarily, this wouldn't affect me because I worked in a hospital. But this is where, finally, my malicious compliance comes in. It was a late March Monday morning, and I was in unusually high spirits on the way into my shift. My morning sickness was finally starting to abate, and there had been no drama for a little while. And I did actually really like my job when I was allowed to just do it. So I was in quite a good mood, and I even greeted my jerk colleagues cheerily. Well, I was greeted with a sharp, "You're not coming in here." I was confused, unsure as to what I could have possibly done over the last 4 days that I hadn't even seen this woman. So after asking her what she meant was she and our other colleagues didn't want to go on the wards, so they had just stuck to the clinic and had planned to send me there instead. We're meant to do the wards first, and they start an hour before I did. Well, my manager and I had already agreed I'd not go on the wards due to lockdown and my pregnancy. I sensed danger and went to call my manager. I let her know what had transpired, and we agreed that I'd just find a spare room in the clinic and work in there, so I did. Not even 30 minutes later, and lo and behold, grumpy colleagues come storming over to me, demanding to know why I didn't share the whole story with her. I say, "What story? There is no story." She says the agreement between our manager. I said, "What business is it of hers?" So she yells at me,
Well, you can't work with us.
I snap and tell her to sort her attitude out and walk off from her. Well, I've had enough. I go to see my manager to tell her so. And when I get there, after telling her what was said, I say, since this colleague likes to act like my supervisor so much, how about I finally take some direction from her? I won't work with her or any of them. I'm done. My manager not only agrees, but tells me to shield instead, preserving my pay, fully paid sick leave, and my paid time off, which took me up to the mat leave start dinner. Winner. Which took me up to my maternity leave start date. Winner. And the kicker? They were stuck short-staffed for a full year during lockdown because my job was legally protected until I officially left it, which was not until March of 2021. So I walked out mid-shift, left them high and dry, and in the words of my manager, they brought it on themselves. Edit. Also a note to the victim blamers who seem to be making their way in. It's fine if you don't believe I was being bullied or that it was somehow my fault. I know what happened, and I know how I dealt with it day to day. I don't divulge a great deal of details on what they did to me, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. I did my best with the situation I was in, and that's good enough for me. Please educate yourself on bullying. Just curious how you could be so unlikable by so many people. There's something missing here. OP. A question I must have asked myself every day for a long time until I realized bullying isn't about the victim, it's about the bully. There was nothing I could do because it wasn't something I was doing. And you know what? Even if I was doing something that caused me to be incredibly unlikable, it doesn't excuse bullying. So no, there's nothing missing except more details on how they bullied me. I don't know you or your colleagues, but in my experience, when someone says none of their colleagues likes them and claims the entire team is bullying them, more often than not, it's you that's the actual problem. They likely feel that they don't want anything to do with you, as you likely make working with them bad. Take a look at how you work with others maybe. OP. It certainly crossed my mind and was a question I asked myself daily while working there. What am I doing wrong? This alongside various efforts to get along with them, improve situations, etc. Additionally, others did like me. We worked with loads of people regularly. It was just the core team that didn't like me, and never had any issues like this in any other jobs I've had. Not to say I was perfect, I'm sure there are things I could have done better, things I've reflected on since, etc. But I know I did my best with the situation I was in, and I know it didn't warrant their behavior towards me. I've had to allow that to be good enough for me so that I could heal. Bullying like this happens, however unbelievable it sounds. Have you ever been bullied at work? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for kicking out my boyfriend's 19-year-old daughter? My boyfriend of 3 years moved into my home 3 weeks ago after his lease went up and he was unable to renew with the price hike they expected. His rent was $1,600 for a 2-bedroom, and upon signing a new lease, they said it would now be $2,400. I have a 3-bedroom home and one son, who's 11. Both his room and my room have an attached bathroom. The guest room does not. We've lived here for 5 years, and I bought it last year. My boyfriend has a 19-year-old daughter named Jess who visits him on the weekends and lives at home with her mother. Literally never had any issues with her up until my boyfriend moved in. When he moved in, Jess started becoming this little snob who had demand after demand that she fully expected me to meet. Like, she wanted me to kick my son out of his room so she could have the room with an attached bathroom, stating that a boy didn't need a bathroom as much as a girl did. When I said absolutely not, she got extremely rude and condescending whenever she was in my home. She also tried parenting my son on more than one occasion, telling him what he can and cannot watch on the TV, what he can and cannot snack on, etc. There have been times when he's tried talking to us and Jess will butt in and say something about how kids are so annoying. If I speak up to her, she says, "I don't believe I was talking to you," or roll her eyes at me. Bold for someone who doesn't pay any rent or food costs to be staying in my home. I told her father last week that either he gets a handle on his adult kid or she was getting booted to the curb. He immediately starts telling me I need to give her time because this is an adjustment for her and that apparently she's having a hard time at her mom's house due to them arguing all the time. Gee, I wonder why. I told him that wasn't my problem and that at my house, me and my son were not going to be treated like this because she can't control her emotions and wants to take her resentment out on us. He said he would talk with her. His talk did nothing at all. In fact, she confronted me about it and said,
I don't know what game you're playing here, but respect is earned, not given, and I will not be granting you respect until you prove to me you deserve it.
She then walks to the living room where my son was watching TV and takes the remote from him and tells him to move. At this point, I go in and immediately tell her to get out of my house. She tells me she isn't going anywhere because her dad lives here, so I end up calling her uncle, who is a police officer, and have her escorted from my house after she collected all of her belongings. My boyfriend says I crossed a line, so I told him he can leave too. He currently isn't speaking to me, locked away in my bedroom. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Remove your boyfriend too. He's not on your mortgage or house deed. He's a guest there at your discretion. If he's going to act this way, he's shown you who he is. Get rid of him before he harasses you or your son. Not the jerk at all. Your boyfriend has been in your house less than 30 days. Tell him to get off your bed, pack his things, and get out now. Then make him your ex. The apple didn't fall too far from the tree. You know exactly where his entitled daughter got her attitude from. Am I the jerk for having my husband drive me back to shore when I wasn't allowed to fish? I, 32, female, rented a boat 2 weeks ago to go fishing. My husband suggested we celebrate his birthday at the same time, which is coming right up because he loves boating. I had no problem with it, but the whole rental was originally so I could fish. He invited our mutual friend, Greg, along, which was no big deal. But it soon turned into Greg driving everywhere and telling us to relax and have a few beers. He refused to sit in one spot for more than 10 to 15 minutes, so I wasn't able to fish at all. Every time I would have a line out for more than 5 minutes, he would ask if we were ready to move on to the next spot. At one point, even bringing us to a crowded sandbar beach where I obviously wasn't able to fish. Roughly 3 hours in, I asked if they could stop driving around so I could do some fishing, and he immediately stopped the boat, no questions asked. But it got really awkward after that. Greg making comments about how he wished he liked to fish so he could understand the hype of sitting in one single spot while on a boat because he can't stand it. Heavy sighing and pacing the boat, etc. I know for a fact he wasn't trying to be a jerk. He truly just couldn't stand sitting in one spot so that I could fish. So my husband at this point was getting uncomfortable with how awkward Greg was unintentionally making things and said, "Well, babe, are you about ready to move to the next spot?" At this point, I just asked them to bring me back to shore. Both of them started protesting and apologizing, saying it was fine and we could stay there longer. But at this point, I was so over the entire trip because I didn't get to fish more than 25 minutes at this point. They bring me back to shore, still apologizing, and Greg saying he was sorry for ruining my fishing trip, and I just said it was fine and walked off to my car without saying another word to them. Well, after my husband got home, he was really quiet, and when I asked him why, he said that it was a bummer that I chose to leave instead of just enjoying the boat for what it was. He said he understands my frustrations, but he couldn't understand why I took it to a level of ruining my entire day and leaving him on the boat that was meant for us. Greg paid me half of the cost I spent to make up for it too, so now I'm wondering if I'm really in the wrong considering the whole point of me getting the boat was to go fishing. Am I the jerk? ETA. Both Greg and my husband knew I rented the boat to fish. My husband even brought his fishing pole, but didn't end up using it. Not the jerk. Inviting Greg defeated the entire purpose. Lesson learned, I hope. The boat wasn't for us, like he mentioned, because Greg was also there. I would understand if it were two couples, but a married couple plus husband's friend is just strange and awkward. Plus, he hijacked your fishing trip. He could have said, or asked, to just enjoy this weekend with him during his birthday and go fishing another time. It doesn't have to be awkward. My significant other and I have been together for 16 years. We've done camping trips, mini vacations, or day trips with one extra person many times. It's only awkward if you make it awkward. We make a point to be welcoming and chill. That being said, Greg took over the trip, which is rude since he was invited along and didn't take part in planning. If either OP or her hubby knew Greg was going to want to drive around the whole time, maybe he wouldn't have gotten an invite. Also, if I rented a boat, I'd be the only one driving. I wouldn't be risking anyone being dumb and costing me big bucks paying for damage. So if Greg just took over driving without asking, he's double the jerk. Not the jerk. You wanted to fish and rented a boat. You weren't able to fish. Letting Greg do the day the way he wanted to do was a mistake. He was your guest and should have behaved like one. Am I the jerk for completely cutting my wife off financially? I know the title sounds bad, but let me explain. My wife and I have been together for a total of 8 years. We have a 5-year-old daughter. When my wife was a kid, she grew up with a kid named Kelly, who was pretty much a throwaway. My wife's family took Kelly in when she was 9. During the 8 years of our relationship, Kelly constantly pops up for a while and then randomly disappears for months on end. About 2 months ago, Kelly resurfaced after her boyfriend was sent to prison on serious charges. Kelly also has a lengthy record. My wife gave me a super sob story trying to get me to agree to let Kelly come stay with us. I was firm on my decision, but my wife went ahead and let her occupy our guest bedroom anyways. I immediately placed our kid with my mother-in-law and told my wife she was not coming back home until Kelly was gone. Kelly stayed with us for 11 days until I had to kick her out. A week ago, I was looking at our bank statement for something totally unrelated. I noticed several Walmart charges for $100 to $300 each, all made the same day. I thought that was odd. I looked over our credit card statement and found a $570 charge for a local motel. Immediately I knew. I confronted my wife. She quickly admitted to the hotel and let me know that $570 was for the first 2 weeks. She would be getting billed for another 2 weeks shortly. On the Walmart charges, she acted shocked, quite clueless. She actually made the suggestion that perhaps Kelly was able to retrieve the card info from the motel and somehow used it at Walmart. However, the bank-issued debit card and credit card are 2 entirely different entities not connected to each other. The total, including the 2-week motel stay, came to $1,367. I then informed my wife I was canceling her cards, all of them, and filing a police report against Kelly since my wife had repeatedly said she didn't make those Walmart charges. Soon, my wife remembered everything. She bought Kelly clothes, shoes, food, toiletries. Then she withdrew cash several times because of Walmart's limit. She had to make small purchases and ask for cash back. Luckily, the credit card was canceled before the next motel charge hit. My wife was okay about me canceling all her cards until she learned she wasn't getting them back. I made it clear, it's not about her spending the money. She's a stay-at-home mom, and I do believe it's her money too. But she lied to me. Aside from that, she's also enabling Kelly. And she never bothered to discuss this with me. She's now accusing me of being financially controlling, since now basically she can't go anywhere unless I'm there to pay. Her mom told her to get a job and get a private bank account that I won't have access to if I want to play this game. I started thinking that I might be the jerk because I'm realizing my wife feels that I'm punishing her. It might not seem that way, but it's not my intentions. Not the jerk. Her mom is right. If she wants to blow money that she didn't earn while not consulting you, she can get a job. You have a 5-year-old and a $1,000 motel bill on a single salary household is tough. Your wife needs to get her priorities straight before she messes up and loses her family. Absolutely not the jerk. However, I completely disagree with your "she can get a job" comment. She has a job. She's a stay-at-home mom. The problem is that she didn't discuss anything with OP about their shared finances before she unilaterally gave her friend $1,367. If everything in this story was exactly the same, except that it was OP who gave his friend over $1,000 without informing his wife, he would absolutely be the jerk for the exact same reason, even though he was the one that earned the money. She can get a job? So being a stay-at-home mom isn't a job now? It is, but it's not one with an income. Stay-at-home parents should charge what daycares do then. Not the jerk. Your reasons are valid. Your wife has proven that she cannot be trusted with unlimited access to the family's finances. She has also proven that she cares more about enabling Kelly than she does her own kid. At this point, I would tell her that her options are immediate marriage counseling, immediate individual counseling, cutting Kelly out of her life completely and getting a job to repay what she basically stole from the family, or you can file for divorce and pursue majority custody based on her favoring Kelly over your kid. Everyone sucks here. Cutting your spouse off from all financial resources isn't okay, especially if she's staying with your kid every day. Emergencies happen, and you can't always be available to pay for things. You two need to discuss the situation and get on the same page. She shouldn't be paying for her friends' living accommodations without telling you, but you're punishing her for that, rather than trying to find a solution. Everyone sucks here. I get your predicament, and it totally sucks, but have you discussed setting up a secondary account for her? Like a portion of your earnings could go into a spending account that you're comfortable with her lighting on fire if she wants, and it won't cause any financial stress. I think there's obviously some unresolved issues with Kelly and your wife that need to be addressed, but that's on her and them to figure out. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
If Reddit Boy did something like this, You'd need a new head.
Am I the jerk for kicking out my mother and sister? I'm 21, female. I own my own place. I've lived here for a while now, and I loved my own peace, living by myself with no kids or a spouse. My mom, who's 41, wasn't the best when I was growing up. She would bring guys in and out of the home all the time. I'm glad nothing ever happened to me, but it gave me a bad view for her once I grew up, and not a good relationship along with it. I have a sister, 22, who's disabled physically and mentally. I grew up with her, but it was extremely hard to form a relationship with her. I had to take care of her a lot growing up, because my own mom wouldn't do any of it due to mom wilding around. My sister and I shared a room growing up, and I hated every second of it, if I'm going to be honest. My mom has been renting for a place to live, and since a few months ago, she can't live there anymore. My sister still lives with my mom, and my mom doesn't take care of her actively. She pays for a caregiver. My mom guilt-tripped me into letting her and my sister live with me temporarily for a month. I eventually said yes. It was fine for the first few days. My mom and sister have been living here now for 3 months. My mom said only 1 month. I have to work a lot, so I'm barely there anyways. But when I have a day off, I hate every second of it. I know my sister cannot help it, that she makes noises, a lot of noises, loud noises. It's like I can hear it everywhere. The caregiver still cares for her, but it's like having a complete stranger in my home. Long story short, on my day off, after hearing everything and the noises and tantrums, I went insane and snapped. I told my mom she has to leave. She refused to leave at first, but eventually she did. The last thing she told me was,
You're supposed to be grateful that I gave you a home to live in,
And you can't give that back?
You're a jerk and always have been.
I eventually told her to just leave, and my mom got my sister and they both left. I feel like I'm the complete jerk because of the fact that I told her to leave just because I was tired of my sister, even though she cannot help it at all. Am I the jerk? Edit. Thank you all for taking the time to comment. I have no new news about my mom or sister. I haven't spoken to her since she left. I haven't been able to reply to comments because I've been insanely busy today, but I just now read most of the comments. I appreciate it, and I started crying at some comments because they hit a soft spot for me. I appreciate the comments you guys left. Thank you.
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.